Lord of the Mysteries, A Time Traveler in the Fourth Age by author Kai Yun-ji. Chapter 159-178. Chapter 159, Deep in Debt. The forced contract of Angel is eye-catching enough. This made even an honest child like Xiao Taiyang have some ideas. After all, as long as the blood of a Sequence 5 Beander is collected, one can forcibly contract a Sequence 5 Beander. This does sound a bit incredible, but if it is just a short-term order, then these Tarot Club members can still accept it. Mr. Angel, how much is this contract? Alger asked first. He felt that if this thing was used properly, it would definitely be able to accomplish an extreme counterattack. A word of advice, this contract I casually made doesn't have such a good effect. Because I haven't tried it myself, I don't know what price to sell it for. Shah Iyer was indeed unsure. He didn't know the effect of this ability. There were curses and contracts in this world, but there were no command spells. The effects of command spells involved many aspects, and the specific level of effect depended on the user. According to my speculation, there's no problem influencing Sequence 6 Beyonders. Angel does have this confidence. If he changes his account to create a command spell, it may even directly disrupt the balance of the game. This kind of thing with huge potential still needs continuous improvement and research, and may be of great use in the future. The price of this alternative contract is at least several hundred gold pounds. Alger was also unsure about the price, so he temporarily gave up the idea of buying it because the money was quite a bit. With a little more, he could buy a second-tier magical item. Magical items can be used for a long time, while this kind of contract can only be used once. After these people finished chatting, the fool suddenly remembered that this was not right. He had not yet asked Miss Justice what reward she wanted. Ms. Justice, what reward do you want? Mr. Fool wasn't sure what kind of reward Miss Justice wanted, so he could only pray silently in his heart. Audrey thought about it. Little Son could help with the Sequence 7 Psychologist's potion formula, but Mr. Fool might not be able to get the corresponding potion ingredients in his current state. So, Mr. Fool, you've spent quite a while reading Russell's diary this time. I'm a little curious. Of course, if this involves something secretive, I'll change my request. In the end, Audrey couldn't control her curiosity. Fortunately, at least it's not a request that I can't handle. Praise the goddess. Klein breathed a sigh of relief, but soon he had a headache. How should he explain these things to Miss Justice? He should at least say something valuable. The fool thought for a moment, then blocked out the others and faced Miss Justice alone. This diary entry does contain some secrets. But I can't tell you too much. I can only tell you that this involves the secrets of the gods. I will have my followers give you some extra compensation later. Klein didn't intend to shirk Miss Justice's payment, he just needed some time to prepare, and he had made a promise. On the other side, Audrey has already hit the rock machine. The secret of the gods. What a niche word this is. How did Emperor Russell know this? He seems to be called the Son of Steam. Miss Justice. The fool asks again. Sorry, Mr. Fool, I overstepped my bounds. Thank you for your answer. As for the reward, it's fine anyway. Your followers don't need to worry. Audrey came to her senses. She no longer cared about asking for any reward. What she wanted most was to share this shocking news with Mr. Angel beside her. Unfortunately, Mr. Fool probably wouldn't agree, and she couldn't continue to ask for more. The fool nodded and ended the private chat mode. The crisis was temporarily averted. The Tarot Club will proceed to the transaction stage. Everyone started to make deals. I want to know the formula for the Diviner's Path Sequence 7 potion. The world's very humble in making its demands. He had a chance. He only needed to kill the high sequence fortune teller and then divine the formula in the gray fog space. However, when he came to his senses, the other party's body had been swept away and he had never seen it again. The angel's lips curled up slightly when he heard the fool's words. The other three members looked at each other. None of them knew the potion formula of the fortune teller's path. Perhaps you can seek help from the Secret Order or the Church of Evernight. Alger chuckled. He had no intention of helping, and he was still instinctively averse to newcomers. Justice and the sun are certainly even less clear. The world can only look to the angel, which is his only hope at the moment. I'll ask for you. The angel gave an ambiguous answer. As for who to ask, the secret order, the Church of Night, or something else, he didn't say. Then I'll leave it to you. The world nodded. Mr. Angel really did have a lot of connections. Everyone repeated their needs. The angel looked at Little Sun and asked, "Have you ever heard of the Scarecrow, or the Herd Watcher?" Because he didn't eat Mr. A at that time, Sha'ir could only collect extraordinary materials on his own to prepare for the promotion. The latter looks like a monkey. Sha'ir also simply concretized two rough patterns. Mr. Angel, I know where these two extraordinary creatures are, but my current strength is not enough to join the corresponding expedition team. The area where these two creatures appear is also quite dangerous. Although Little Sun wanted to help, even if he became a Sequence 8, he couldn't join such a high-level expedition team. It's okay. You can go back and confirm the approximate location later. I'll find a way to solve it myself. Sha'ir was not worried. At most, he could let the resentful spirit go to Silver City on his behalf. Okay, Mr. Angel. Derek nodded subconsciously before realizing the problem. Mr. Angel, do you mean to say that you can help Little Sun solve the problem? Audrey was also shocked. That was Silver City, a place they couldn't even find. If it really doesn't work, I beg Mr. Fool to send my spirit body over there. I only need to bring a few suitable sealing objects and avoid encountering demigods. There is almost no danger. Sha'ir said calmly. The notary's spirit carries two precious second-level seals, the Crimson Moon Crown and the Puppet Head. It's very safe, as long as we don't consider the conflict issue of the notary accommodating the Crimson Moon Corona, but he is a hermit at heart, so it's not a big problem. As long as you don't encounter a demigod, there is almost no danger. Klein's mouth twitched. A few suitable sealing objects. How many good things do you have? Alger was also helpless. It sounded like they were on the same level as pirate generals, or even the top admirals. Why does the word demigod sound like a joke to you? Chapter 160 Knowledge follows people. Fourth Age. The Kingdom of Dragons, the City of Miracles. Sha'ir separated out an identity and has been walking in the outside world as a hermit. But this is not enough. A qualified extraordinary organization definitely needs a complete set of guidelines. This feeling of separating out into an incarnation and taking the path of a hermit is somewhat terrible. The angel was fine before, but once the characteristics of Sequence 2 were involved, madness would inevitably emerge. Even if the incarnation is clean, pure, and not mixed with extraordinary characteristics. However, the divinity that comes from the archangel will still cause this separated identity to exhibit some symptoms that only occur with the indiscriminate eating characteristic. If audience is the answer, then the Hanged Man approach loses some of its uniqueness. It would be easy to cultivate a God's descent vessel myself, but I don't have the time. The White Tower path disguised as the hermit path is also good, but it can't hide from the eyes of the true gods. It requires at least a genuine Sequence 2 sage, and with sufficient caution, to keep the secret. Sure sat on the throne of the Dragon King. As the battle power of the White Tower approach was ominous, his super wisdom provided a perfect solution. The only problem is that the angels who are promoted to the hermit path from the imagination incarnation may be incompatible with some versions, causing some minor problems such as madness, right? Installing a plugin can solve this problem. By using the power of the Chaos Sea to create a plugin, the compatibility problem can be perfectly solved. Similarly, if a high-end item like the Chaos Sea is used, then the minor madness caused by the audience and hermit can be ignored and the problem can be solved perfectly. Mr. Men is the best example. He is very calm when he is calm and not crazy at all. Sha'ir made a simple deduction and stretched out his hand to grab the void in front of him. Even though his combat power was ominous, it still took some effort to summon a historical projection. This historical projection is a pair of eyes without eyelashes. He has never appeared in the past, but comes from the future. He is a tiny bit of the hidden sage. According to the limitations of the ability to summon historical projection, uniqueness cannot be summoned, but it can be approached. Such a tiny thing is still within the scope allowed by the ability. It is not the hermit's uniqueness, but it has a close connection with the hermit's uniqueness. It's a bit difficult to summon the extraordinary aggregate directly. Let's check it through omniscience. Shah-Ayar waved his hand, and the pair of illusory, eyelash-less eyes gradually merged with his eyes. Then, based on the mystical connection, he used the authority of omniscience to slowly search. His current omniscience is no less than Klein's divination above the gray fog. The uniqueness of the hermit itself has the power to hide, but if the right method is used, there will always be some reaction. As long as there is a little breath or feedback, Shah-Ayar can find it through the mystical connection. Even if the entire world is screened, it won't take much time. Those true gods have already reached the end, and the road ahead is still smooth. The world before Shah-Ayar's eyes began to change. Through his illusory eyes, he saw the world through the eyes of the hermit. As the 0 and 1 in his eyeballs rapidly flowed and changed, everything in the world was digitized. Everything was data that could be freely assembled, disassembled, and deleted. The hermit symbolizes the mystical side of knowledge itself. The uniqueness of the hermit's path may not be an object, but a piece of data information. Shah-Ayar stretched out his hand and swiped, logging directly into the spiritual world server. Here was a virtual ocean of countless knowledge, countless information, and countless illusions intertwined. Compile all the occult knowledge of the hermit path found on the desecrated slate into a string of activation codes. Then, add the power and aura of the hidden sage to it. Activate this string of activation codes, and give the actual power to the abstract knowledge, and match it with the authority of omniscience, so that you get a string of cheating instructions. Knowledge chases people. I'll wait for you. Shah-Ayar directly input the cheat activation code with the hidden power into the spiritual world, and then began to wait patiently. He himself had no idea whether this would work. But I am still very relaxed. If the knowledge doesn't come to me, I will just go there myself and the result will be the same. Moreover, the uniqueness of the hermit may not necessarily not come. According to the composition of the hidden sage, at least one uniqueness and one sequence, one characteristic can be caught. If the sequence one characteristic is an entity, it may not be so intelligent, but uniqueness as the embodiment of knowledge may not disappoint people. Shah-Ayar did not insist on waiting. His incarnation was still active in the outside world. He joined the newly established Moss ascetic order and became one of its initial members. Because of this, omniscience is a plug-in. He learned the knowledge of mysticism as if he had a system. He grew rapidly in the name of genius. Time passed quietly, and the king on the throne fell into a deep sleep in order to balance the various forces in his body and fight against the inevitable madness. New content continued to appear on the murals on both sides of the hall, and the activities of the elves in the world of the book also became Sher's open black lens bracket anchor close black lens bracket. The audience is omniscient. Shah-Ayar has left a timer program, and there is no need to wake up from his sleep. Every once in a while, his body will summon historical projections according to the preset plan, adjust the cheat code, and hide in the spiritual world. There is no rush, there is no shortage of time. If you are caught cheating, your account will be blocked. He would rather take it slow, and finally have the day of harvest. Kingdom of Constantine. Shah-Ayar, a storm path sequence 2, has been the king for some time. The combination of a king who lives in the path of a storm and a state religion that worships the Earth Mother Goddess means good weather and abundant harvests. In this age of strife, such a kingdom on the west side of the continent is simply a paradise for ordinary people. Shah-Ayar also released all the elves from the storm path, the mother path, and the destiny path. The elves from the mother path were directly incorporated into the gods' favored system, and the elves from other paths were directly incorporated into the gods' favored system. This may make the elves subtly believe in the Mother Earth. But as long as the elves can get the protection of a true god, this is not a problem at all. Apart from Kazanamu, who couldn't save face, even the god of luck accepted the title of Lucky Angel under the seat of Mother Earth. Chapter 161. The population has increased, so let's go to war. Kazanamu had never appeared once in the kingdom of Constantia, in the diocese of the Earth Mother. The so-called Angel of Punishment was played by Sha'ir. Apparently, the elf queen, Kazanamu, still doesn't want to face the giant queen. The god of luck has actually shown some miracles on his own initiative. Although the elves and giants had conflicts, the giant king was dead after all, and the Mother Earth goddess was willing to provide shelter. This was a mutually beneficial thing, and the elves did not necessarily refuse it. Moreover, on some murals that have not been destroyed, the followers of the sun god painted the Earth Mother goddess in a very bad light. This is good news for the elves, especially for the god of luck. There are some contradictions between the Mother Earth goddess and the fallen god. Only the god of luck would consider accepting the protection of the Mother Earth goddess, because Ouroboros would definitely stand on the side of the fallen god. As the elves gradually turned to the Earth Mother, they experienced less persecution. The anchor of the three elven angels stabilized, and the god of luck was no longer so worried about being hunted by the angel of fate, Ouroboros. He began to search, or rather, to try his luck, to test the unique path to destiny. The queen of natural disasters, Kazanamu, did not come to land. She chose to continue on the sea and lead the sea tribes that were massacred by humans. These were originally subordinate races of the elves, and they all obediently followed the orders of the Queen of Elves, and migrated to the deep sea and various remote sea areas. In order to make the elves adapt to life in the Church of the Earth, Sha'ir wanted to hold a position in the Church of the Earth. However, when he failed to find a position, he took the opportunity to become the Pope. This, Mistress of the Desolation, was a very gentle lady, and the two of them hit it off immediately. This was originally just a normal pastime, but when Sha'ir wanted to kill him, the Pope of the Earth almost turned hostile. He claimed that reproduction was the most sacred thing in the world, and any action that used external forces to interfere with this sacred moment was a heresy that must be eliminated. Sha'ir thought that this was the Church of the Earth after all, so it was acceptable. Perhaps they respected nature more. Then he saw that the lady who said that no external force could be used to intervene began to reproduce using her extraordinary abilities, with a loving and sacred expression on her face. How could Sha'ir not understand such obvious double standards? It is understandable that you simply want to have a child. Sha'ir roughly understood the Earth Pope's thought process through mind reading. Although this lady herself has the power to reproduce, parthenogenesis, or even making stones reproduce, is a very simple matter. But it is obvious that he wants to use this traditional method to strengthen his own humanity, and let the growth of his offspring become his important open black lens bracket anchor close black lens bracket to fight against the madness of the angel itself. Baby, you will be born a sequence 5 druid. If you're a boy, you're a future cardinal. If you are a girl, you will be the future Pope of the Earth. Mom will work hard to help you prepare your Beander characteristics. Sha'ir looked at the Mistress of the Desolation, in confusion as she started to paint a rosy picture for the embryo. Have you forgotten what your path is? Can't you just change the gender? Are you the Earth Mother Goddess? You just promised the future Pope. From now on, our Roland family will be a family of God's grace who serve the Mother Goddess for generations. The Mistress of Desolation ignored Sha'ir and lovingly touched her belly and said, Roland family. The paternal line is the one favored by God, and the maternal line is the Pope of the Earth, the pinnacle of the system of those favored by God. There is no problem in theory, but why should angels care about the so-called family? Sha'ir didn't understand, but he expressed respect. Can I eat this cake? I'm afraid not. Sha'ir had studied the stone of life, given by the Mother Earth, and it was an alternative, resurrection koan. The mistress of desolation is dead, and the Earth Mother Goddess may be able to give birth to her own pope again. If this guy doesn't step down, it's just empty talk. Don't you think the population of the Kingdom of Constant is growing a bit too fast? Although Shah Ayar had no intention of being a proper king, he still asked. This question is not important, but it cannot be ignored. The Earth Church, a group of extraordinary people, created all kinds of strange creatures. We are still encouraging childbirth. Maybe the population will become larger and larger in a few years. It's okay, I will make them restrain themselves, and it's not like we can't afford to support them. His Holiness the Pope obviously doesn't care. In his opinion, the northern continent is so big, and its population is so small. Shah Ayar believed it doubtfully. Then the population began to rise sharply. The members of the Church of Mother Earth are very happy. The number of believers of Mother Earth has increased, which is really cause for celebration. But with the growth of population, some problems have also arisen. For example, Soren, who had not been seen for a long time, suddenly came to the door. Shah Ayar looked at the handsome man with long red hair and confirmed that he had become his good brother Soren. I heard you need a helper. Soren didn't hesitate and went straight to the point. What can you do for me? With the kids. Shah Ayar told a cold joke. He had already guessed what Soren was thinking. I can help you fight. With plenty of food and a large population, don't you think your land area is a bit small? Soren sat in Shur's chair, leaning back and looking at him provocatively. Fight. What will the other churches think of your fighting? Shah Ayar knew that Sauron wanted to use his kingdom to provoke war and help him digest the potion. We don't care what they think. They should preach and we should fight and fight. Soren said with some ease. You don't seem embarrassed. Shah Ayar pinched Soren's cheek. Even if Soren turned his skin into steel, the scourge could still pinch it as he pleased. I'll be able to change back sooner or later. Soren used a mirror substitute to appear next to him and avoided Shah Ayar's clutches. You also absorbed the low-level characteristics of the witch path. Shah Ayar smiled. He wanted to try to change back, but failed. I tried it before, and it had some effect, but the higher order hunter trait directly overrode the lower order witch trait. Now it's like this again. I'll just have to make do with it for now. Soren shrugged. He certainly didn't care about his gender. It was just a matter of becoming a man. It wasn't a big deal. He would have the chance to change back in the future. I'll ask the Church of Mother Earth. See if they want to start a war. Shah Ayar didn't care. He squeezed the sound into a ball and threw it in a certain direction. In a short while, vines began to grow from the ground beneath their feet. It seems the church is also somewhat interested. Chapter 162. This is not an ordinary Sharon. The Fifth Era. Shah Ayar is still on a rare paid vacation. Although Mrs. Maynard did not approve a large amount of funds, he used his own connections to raise some money. Like Audrey Hall, like Audrey Hall, like Audrey Hall. This money, along with the money laundered from helping Backland Integrated Services Company do missions, he invested in the service company, renting a cheap factory in the East District, hiring some reliable and suitable female workers, and purchasing some corresponding machinery and equipment. Before the Air Pollution Committee was established, he had already prepared for the mask factory. There's nothing going on here for now. The Wrathful Spirit Trio. The hedonistic saint who came to Backland with him was not there most of the time. This person obviously has his own things to do and will not personally keep an eye on little Sharon and Marich. The Wrathful Spirit, Shah Ayar, gradually forgot about Sharon. Especially when he was only one main ingredient away from being able to strengthen to the demigod level. It is even more impossible that he has nothing to do and thinks about how to bully Sharon every day. Of course, if the boss is slacking off, the two followers will definitely not dare to slack off. Living Household, Jason and Werewolf, Tell never forgot their original intention and continued to search for Sharon and Marich. Sometimes Shah Ayar feels sad when she sees this. What's the point of being so diligent? With the Crimson Moon Corona in hand, Sharon knew she was no match for their opponent. They moved covertly during the day and remained inactive at night, leaving, alive, Jason and Werewolf Tear nowhere to be found. Even if they found any trace, this was backland. Could they still fight in broad daylight? Shah-Ir felt that this was meaningless, but the two younger brothers never gave up. Mr. Zatwin, the immediate superior, would come back by chance and see this scene, and would nod slightly in approval of Shah-Ir. Although the work was done by two subordinates and Shah-Ir was always slacking off, in the eyes of his boss, Shah-Ir deserved praise for the two subordinates' hard work, but he deserved criticism for not catching the person. Shah-Ir wanted to persuade his two men to slack off together, but it was fine for him to slack off, but if his two men slacked off, they would have to bear the pressure from the top. There was no way Shah-Ir could persuade them and could only watch the two of them go out and do useless things whenever they had time. He will be going on a long trip soon. In order to prevent Sharon from going out and taking Marich to kill all his men, Shah-Ir could only let Ms. Sharon be quiet for a while. Night. Shah-Ir finally took it a little seriously this time. Although the two men worked hard every day and didn't catch anyone, they still found some clues. He held the crimson moon crown and blended into the crimson moonlight. Little black bats flapped their wings and began to search certain places in a carpet-like manner. As long as Sharon doesn't want her residence to be exposed, she can only show up in a certain direction and divert all of Shah-Ir's suspicion and attention. The two unlucky subordinates had no idea that their boss was using them as bait, and they also began to investigate in certain directions. As expected, Sharon chose to attack the werewolf Tyre, who lived nowhere near her, in an attempt to divert Shah-Ir's investigation. Tyre's eyes darkened, and he twisted his own neck, scurrying from the moonlight into a dark corner. The little bat that was flying over werewolf Tyr's head as a warning was also shot down. After receiving the signal, the resentful soul in the air flashed out directly from the crimson moonlight. The full moon area spreads. The werewolf, Tail, stopped strangling himself, but this hedonistic member also lost his mind in the full moon. He was knocked unconscious by Shah-Ir and thrown to the resentful spirit who arrived later. Sharon ran away directly. Even though she could kill a member of the hedonist clan by staying a little longer, she still chose to leave immediately. The restraint of the seal is too obvious. In the full moon state, the indulgent faction loses its mind, and the temperance faction needs to use most of its strength to control its evil thoughts. It will become extremely weak unless released, and will also turn into a monster. You can't outrun me at night unless the clouds cover the moon. Shah-Ir locked onto Sharon's position and vanished once more. Sharon's escape location was quite thoughtful, as she had no intention of involving official beyonders or innocent people. After a few leaps, one fleeing and the other chasing, both sides arrived in the forest outside Backland. Sharon stopped running, her delicate face expressionless, her blue eyes reflecting the moonlight that followed closely behind her. She had also made up her mind that before raising enough funds to buy a powerful seal, she had to make the hedonistic faction stay quiet for a while. This constant harassment and searching prevents them from making money. Are you tired of it too? I don't want to waste time with you anymore, so I'll just take you down. Shur appeared from the sky, his dark red cape flowing with moonlight. He held the crimson moon crown and tossed it up and down twice. Then he put it into a wooden box, put a spiritual seal on it, and threw it onto a tree canopy not far away. Sharon frowned slightly, not understanding what the other party was doing. She had been prepared to release her evil thoughts directly in the full moon, but this was somewhat beyond her expectations. Although we belong to different factions, we have known each other for a long time, right? Since we're all acquaintances, there's no need for that kind of ugly fighting style. Without using the seal, you're still no match for me. Shur moved his fingers and said lightly, in his opinion, to beat Sharon, isn't it enough to have hands? And in the memory of the wrathful spirit, Sharon was always superior. You just rely on your age. Sharon rarely fought back. She considered herself to have a good temper, but seeing the other party look down on her like that, she felt a little angry. The age difference between the two was at least 10 years. The hedonist was always one level higher than her. She had been advancing straight up and catching up. How could the other party not reflect on this and still be so arrogant? Not only is my age bigger, my fists are bigger too. Sha'ir stretched out his hand and clenched it, and 2 frost spears, one long and one short, condensed out. In this world where combat skills are not needed, he honed his martial arts skills a little bit. Wasn't it just to act arrogantly among his peers? Sharon wasn't afraid at all. Even though her digestion progress at sequence 5 couldn't match Shur's, she still had her own pride. Death spells were wrapped around her palms. Without the seal, it was hard to say who would escape. Sharon went straight on. Super cool ice explosion 100 moments spiral slash. Sha'ir swung his spear, and a large number of ice crystal arrows floated up and exploded, scattering endless ice chips. Each ice fragment is like a small mirror. Sha'ir jumped directly through the mirror, flashed infinitely, and punched the confident Sharon with a heavy punch. Chapter 163 Hug Me Back. Super cool ice explosion 100 moments spiral slash. Swish, swish, swish. Even the resentful spirit's vision became blurry, and he could only see the deep red color constantly jumping in front of him. After Sharon's opening move blocked a large number of ice crystals, she was almost pierced 3 times by the infinite flash combo. Shur's fast-paced fighting style left Sharon with no time for micromanagement and no energy to clean up the scattered ice crystals and ice chips. Shur only had 2 operations. A mirror jump and a straight thrust with the spear, without any unnecessary movements. The moment Sharon blew out the wind of death, Sha'ir seized the opportunity and pierced the resentful spirit with an enchanted spear. This was because the resentful spirit was in shadow form and had a strong resistance to ice. If the extraordinary person had taken other paths, he would have been dead. The combo I was planning couldn't be performed. It was meaningless for the 2 ghosts to use ghost possession. Their digestion speed was not comparable, and coupled with the restraint of desire, Sharon suffered in the end. Sharon was completely helpless, and was forced by Sha'ir to embark on the evil path of mirror jump and counter A. Because she was being chased and poked, Sharon had no time to think and completely lost her sense of direction. She could only instinctively jump between the mirrors, then chop each other, and then jump again until she was poked again, repeating the cycle over and over again. The frost-attributed spear with the withering enchantment will not be fatal, but it will make people feel uncomfortable and can also have a certain stiffening effect. Sharon tried to resist, but her mind was too slow to react. She withstood the damage and prepared to counterattack, but the opponent simply jumped away, then jumped back out, poked her again, and disappeared again. If she stayed still, she would be hit endlessly, and if she moved, she would be easily disrupted. The more times the mirror jumped, the more she could no longer figure out where she was jumping to. Everything depended on her instinctive mirror jumping, defending and counter-attacking, and then jumping again. She couldn't stop at all. Sha'ir could sometimes predict Sharon's next position, jump over in advance, and sweep with her spear. This frustrating battle made Ms. Sharon's head feel numb. She wanted to use Wrathful Spirit's scream regardless of the consequences, but Sha'ir directly possessed and trapped the Wrathful Spirit. After interrupting the spell, he did not waste time or struggle, but just jumped away like a mirror, and then jumped to another position. Another cold light came first, and he used normal attacks to scrape the wound. No matter what ultimate move Sharon wants to use, she will be possessed by the vengeful spirit and her spell will be interrupted. It didn't matter if Sharon wanted to hit him as well, Shur would block it for a while, and then continue to attack with basic attacks. However, Sharon still couldn't beat Shur in close combat. The basic stats were almost the same. Sharon was still beaten and lost focus, and finally fell into a mobile battle where she had to fight and flash at the same time. Finally, I was shot again and felt the chill that stimulated my soul. Sharon's confused mind cleared up for a moment, and she realized that she really couldn't beat the hedonist on the opposite side. This kind of constant interruption was too depressing. She made up her mind and directly activated the invincible mode, immune to the interruption effect of normal attacks. Bang! All the ice crystal fragments on the ground exploded. Sharon released the desires and evil thoughts that she usually suppressed. These desires were like an erupting volcano, giving her powerful strength. Her blue eyes turned red, and her expressionless and delicate little face looked even more evil at this moment. Black Lolita, the evil version of bloodthirsty Sharon. A collector's item. Sha'ir realized that he seemed to be a little defeated. Under normal circumstances, the hedonistic faction is definitely stronger, but during the outbreak period of the abstinence faction, the upper limit is still higher than that of the hedonistic faction. Wearing the Crimson Moon crown. That's so embarrassing. While Sha'ir was still thinking, Sharon's condensed big claws flew over. Sha'ir tried to break it with force, and then was hit hard. Now the basic values of both sides are uneven, which directly leads to imbalance. The indulgent faction is always indulging, with abundant desires and almost no shortcomings. The combat power is too stable. Although the desire can be released, there is not such a big period of explosion. If you can't win with strength, then use wisdom to solve the problem. While Sha'ir was fending off Sharon's attacks that were filled with countless personal emotions, he was also waiting for Sharon to lose more of her sanity. When the time was almost right, Sha'ir threw a wooden box into the sky. He snapped his fingers, and the wooden box shattered. Inside was a key ingredient needed to upgrade a Sequence 5 Wraith to a Sequence 4 Puppet. This instinctive attraction was fatal and irresistible to Sharon, who had temporarily lost her mind and was like a wild ghost. Sharon simply abandoned the somewhat difficult Sha'ir and flew towards the sky. The winner is decided. Sha'ir also sacrificed his sanity, erupted in desire, activated the invincible mode, and leapt up to punch. Sharon, who was chasing the demigod material, sensed the danger and shifted her attention back to Sha'ir. However, the aura of decay, death, and frost accumulated in her body from previous battles was directly detonated. Even with her Wushwang active, she was still affected, causing her condition to temporarily decline. After a cordial and friendly exchange, as expected, Sharon collapsed. Sha'ir took back the main material that he had thrown away. He was also injured. In his ghost form, there was no damage to his clothes, but the evil thoughts and death energy surrounding his body were obviously scratched out by the woman on the ground with her claws. I told you there's no way you can win. There's a whole 10 years gap. Because the hedonists have been stimulating desires all the time, after the outbreak, Sha'ir's sanity recovered much faster than Sharon's. He moved his fingers slightly, and ghostly shadows took down the wooden box hanging on the treetop. Sha'ir took out the Crimson Moon crown and activated the full moon mode. Feeling the rapid recovery of her health and spirituality, Sharon, who had fallen to the ground, trembled. She should have gone mad during the full moon, but because it was sage time, she only enjoyed the benefits. Winner takes all. Sha'ir sat on a nearby rock, controlling Sharon's body as if he were controlling a zombie, and performed a graceful dance under the crimson glow. The black gothic long skirt is quite suitable for dancing, Sha'ir thought to himself. Half an hour later, Sharon regained consciousness. She felt sore all over, and her already pale face looked even more grim. I think, as a resentful spirit that can communicate directly with the spirit world, theoretically, you can watch the replay. Sha'ir kindly reminded him. Sharon's expression became extremely fierce when she heard this. There is no such insulting thing. She came straight to Sha'ir, hugged him tightly, and was about to sink into the spirit world and die together. She is a Sequence 5, and as long as she reaches the spirit world, she will touch certain taboos and destroy both of them. Sha'ir blinked. She took the initiative, so, hug her back. Chapter 164 Forced to be decent. In the state of resentful spirit, there is nothing to hold on to. This is how Sha'ir felt after hugging him. He didn't really let Sharon drag him to the spirit world to play 3-body. If he wanted to subdue Sharon in this state, brute force would be useless. It required wisdom. I have Marich in my hands. With just these simple words, Sha'ir could clearly feel that Sharon's strength in pinching his arm had significantly weakened. Sharon couldn't be allowed to react at this time, otherwise she would soon realize that Marich was probably beyond saving. It would be better to continue dragging this culprit into the spirit world to feed the fish. No matter what he said then, Sharon would definitely not listen. I didn't sleep with you. Shah-Ir decided to use the wrathful spirit speaking style. Sharon's worries about Marich disappeared instantly after hearing this. Her delicate little face wrinkled and she looked up at Shah-Ir with an embarrassed expression. What nonsense are you talking about? Can you say that? I prefer the type of person your teacher is. Of course, don't tell her, or she'll beat me to death. Shah-Ir glanced at Miss Sharon. She was quite pretty, but if compared to Miss Coconut Tree, she was still a little inferior. Can you please let go of my hand? I just hugged you for a moment. Are you going to break my arm? Shah-Ir tried to move his wrist, but Sharon was holding his forearm tightly. If he was not in spirit form, it would probably be very painful, and perhaps his juices would have been squeezed out. At this time, Sharon finally grasped a thread from this incomprehensible trend of thought. Putting aside those words that seemed to be specifically aimed at her, the key point seemed to be that her teacher was not dead yet. My teacher is still alive. Sharon ignored Shah-Ir's plea to let go, but instead held on tighter. Then she was hit on the head by Shah-Ir and was forced to let go and take a few steps back. Nonsense. If your teacher wasn't still alive, what do you think would have happened to you if you fell into my hands? If your teacher hadn't died, why would I resort to the way we used to get along at the Rose School? Wouldn't it be better to just kill you with the same attitude I used when I hunted you down? Shah-Ir said this with a bit of regret. Why wasn't he a true member of the hedonistic faction? Sharon finally understood at this time. No wonder the other party's attitude changed significantly after chasing them to Backland. Although the attitudes of the two living people and the werewolf did not change, it could be considered that their level was not enough. Shah-Ir's attitude is very clear. In the past, he was hunting people down, but now he is suppressing them. In the past, he was merciless and could act recklessly, but now he has a sense of propriety and can only humiliate them. Although the abstinence faction could not defeat the hedonism faction, Renette Tinicole was an angel after all. Even if she was seriously disabled, it would be too easy for her to kill Shah-I, the little bastard who had tortured and killed her students. The hedonism faction would not say anything afterwards, even if they had to deal with Coconut Tree later, and the reason would definitely not be revenge for Shah-I. Is a sequence 5 suitable? You know me, I'm a decent person. Shah-Ir shook the crimson cloak behind him and bowed slightly to Sharon. Wrathful Steve is a decent man. Sharon's backing is still there, so naturally she has to follow the rules. Sharon was silent for a moment after hearing this, and also lifted the hem of her skirt to return the greeting to Shah-Ir. She didn't want to be polite, but since she couldn't beat him, she decided to be polite and said, "Let's have a drink together." Shah-Ir clapped his hands, and a shadow brought up a bottle of red wine in 2 highball glasses. Although he doesn't like beer, he still likes some red wines. Sharon didn't refuse. She watched the red wine pour into the goblet in her hand, clinked glasses with Shah-Ir, took a sip politely, and then asked, "How is my teacher now?" "I don't know either, but she's an angel after all. As long as she's not dead, how bad can her condition be? You're no stranger to the survival abilities of alien species." Of course Shah-Ir couldn't explain, he only said what he should know. At this time, Sharon, of course, also saw what happened when she lost consciousness through the spiritual playback. She was manipulated to dance, which should have made her very annoyed, but the two sides were enemies after all. She felt that she could tolerate it and pretend that it never happened for the time being. She would have the opportunity to retaliate in the future. "You helped me recover from my injuries. Does that mean you don't want to arrest me?" Sharon's blue eyes stared at Shah-Ir. This question was very important. If your teacher is dead, you'll be a remnant of the Temperance School. If your teacher is still alive, you'll be the Sharon of the Rose School. Although I really want to vent my desires on you, this desire can't affect my judgment. After all, I'm not short of women. Shah-Ir raised his glass and clinked it with Ms. Sharon again. After all, this account of his was a Sequence 5 powerhouse, a pirate general. A person of the rank of army colonel would not be distracted by Sharon. What are you going to do with Marich? Sharon lowered her eyes slightly. She knew it was time to negotiate terms, and perhaps even pay a little price. Sha'ir didn't touch her, but there was no pressure at all to touch Marich. I'm kidding. We didn't catch him, not because we couldn't, but because there was no need. Sha'ir shook his head. He couldn't think of any harsh conditions for the time being, so he just confessed. Sharon was a little surprised, but thinking back to the extraordinary material that had an instinctive attraction to her, she realized that the other party's current energy might be focused on how to become a demigod, so he didn't take Marich seriously and planned to give her face. Thanks. Sharon's voice was noticeably more sincere this time. Even though she knew that if the other party had not been concerned about her teacher, she might have been 0k, but she still felt a little fortunate to have met such a hedonistic person. If she had met the Blood Admiral, she would not have been so lucky. At least Marich will definitely die, and she will probably not have a good ending either. You're welcome. I won't continue chasing you, but my 2 men will continue looking for your traces. Ms. Sharon of the Rose School, the mission of hunting down the remnants of the Temperance faction has been assigned by our superiors. Please cooperate with us. Don't make things difficult for us. Sha'ir felt that Sharon could understand. They had to pretend because their immediate superior, the silent disciple of Sequence 3, didn't know that the angel on the opposite side was not dead yet. Sha'ir would pass on the information later, and maybe he could even exchange his contribution for a demigod-level mummy or similar ritual materials. We will not initiate conflict with your men. Sharon agreed. At this moment, she was not in the mood to care about Sha'ir's 2 subordinates. She didn't know how long this peace agreement would last, but she knew that if Shur ascended to demigod status and she remained at Sequence 5, then their next meeting would be a far cry from this respectability. Chapter 165 from Underground. Would Sharon know Renette Tinnicole's name? This was bullshit, and she absolutely knew it. When Sha'ir told Sharon that her angel teacher was still alive, Sharon instantly became a Sequence 5 with the support of a broken angel, and perhaps she could be promoted to a demigod earlier. Now that Sharon's energy was tied up, the wrathful soul could now go to the City of Silver without any worries. The extraordinary ability of the puppet in Alien Path Sequence 4 is very interesting. It can manipulate all inanimate objects within a certain range, including unmastered and soulless magical objects. Sha'ir first strengthened this living body to a demigod, and then directly controlled the body with the puppet's extraordinary ability. It should feel quite smooth. Now we just have to wait for Little Sun to find out the specific location of some wild extraordinary materials, and then we can consider setting off. But before that, there are a few minor issues to sort out. When he separated from Sharon and returned to Backland, he sensed a familiar yet oppressive aura. Do you have to cause trouble here? The East District gang leader looked helplessly towards a location on the edge of the East District near the suburbs. The Aurora Club never disappoints when it comes to making trouble. They are so active that those who don't know would think that the real creator is anxious to get out of the god-forsaken land. That's impossible. Sha'ir didn't think much about it, and his figure disappeared immediately. If he met him, he would definitely ruin everything. Oh, wait. The disappeared resentful spirit reappeared. If the resentful spirit came forward to do this, it would be in vain. If the hermits of the Church of Night did it, it would be a merit and it would also pave the way for the next promotion. So, a church clergyman who was on paid leave suddenly had the idea of coming to the East District to inspect the factory. Sha'ir felt that it was not difficult to explain. Isn't it normal for the listener to sense some kind of danger hidden in the East District? He made a routine visit to the newly established mask factory, then attended some aristocratic gatherings and participated in some hunting and horse racing activities in the suburbs. He discovered something unusual and immediately returned to report it to the church. Street. Samuel's Cathedral. I want to report. Sha'ir told Daly the matter directly. Daly frowned. She felt a little overwhelmed and threw the matter directly to the sword of the goddess, Crest Sasima. This sword of the goddess was also decisive. He brought his 2 teammates and called Sha'ir. Seeing that the Red Gloves team led by Sost was idle, he called them along as well. After all, that place was on the edge of the jurisdiction of the Church of Storms, so it would be better to go there and fight quickly. Leonard, a newbie in red gloves, caught up with his old friend Sha'ir and asked, "Isn't that the jurisdiction of the Church of Storms?" This poet classmate, who was urged by his grandfather to take the Red Gloves exam and passed, was still very innocent at that time. The informant is a clergyman of the Church of Evernight, and that's close to the outskirts. Can this achievement be given to someone else? Sha'ir felt a little disappointed. How could he just push the work away? Is this year's year-end bonus too hot to handle? Then why only send 2 of us? Leonard was speechless. Soster's original words were, "If it doesn't work, report it to the Storm Church. We have to wait until night. We'll have a boost in strength at night. We'll destroy them and leave without giving the Storm Church any time to react. If this boiler is about to explode during the day, then I'll sound the alarm, and you report it to the Church of Storms. Your Excellency, Sword of the Goddess, is acting bravely. There's no conflict." Sha'ir took Leonard to disguise himself and collect specific information. After a brief investigation, Sha'ir had a guess. It was the same old story. Despair was the breeding ground for evil gods. The only uncertainty is whether the reproduction in the abandoned factory is bisexual or mitosis. Time gradually turned to evening. 2 subordinates of Sword of the Goddess, Sesima took out a sealed object that looked like a mirror and shone it, isolating the entire suburban world from reality. He gestured, indicating that everyone should follow him and charge in. These Red Gloves mostly used dark roots to break into the factory. Sha'ir looked back in the direction of St. Samuel's Cathedral, then blended into the shadows with confidence. The distance was so close, and Archbishop Anthony was a saint. If their composite team couldn't win, they could just call out his name for help. Archbishop Anthony would come through the spiritual world and suppress all disobedience, so there would be no problem. When Sha'ir stepped out from the shadows, he saw a rose bishop who was knocked away by the sword of the goddess, falling down. His body turned into a pool of flesh and blood cloak, as if he was going to cover Sha'ir directly, absorb his flesh and blood and characteristics and return to his peak hovering state. Then you're gone. Sha'ir touched the eye of wind at his waist, and the high-intensity wind pressure swept upwards like a washing machine, trying to tear the injured rose bishop into pieces. A certain Red Gloves considerately used the power of Night Demon to trap him for a while. Sha'ir praised the poet for his good eyesight, then increased his output and directly used the wind blade to dismantle the sequence 6 rose bishop, waiting for the extraordinary characteristics to be released later. Goddess Sword, Sesima didn't waste time with these Aurora Society members. His smooth movements, like chopping melons and vegetables, came to an abrupt halt when he encountered the enchanting beauty Mr. A. As the face of the 22 gods of the Aurora Society, Mr. A easily blocked Sesima. At the same time, more rose bishops and hermits appeared in the shadows. They seemed to be in a period of religious fanaticism. The 2 professional Red Glove teams were unable to break through the Aurora Society's formation. Are you kidding? So many people came to the Aurora Club, even Mr. A came. How could this listener not think the danger was small? Has his hearing deteriorated since he changed his career path and became a notary? Sha'ir planned to actively turn on listening and do what he heard. He merged into the shadows and closed his eyes. The world seemed to be still. There were many noisy sounds in the environment. Putting aside the part produced by the battle between the Red Gloves and the Aurora Society, his mind gradually heard some noises. These sounds were emanating from the members of the Aurora Society. Sha'ir listened carefully and heard a heavy heartbeat with a strange rhythm. Suddenly, he saw an underground palace filled with humanoid creatures with shriveled bodies and stiff movements. The terrifying resentment and despair that could not be dispelled even by death kept flowing through certain cracks to reach somewhere. The heartbeat there was even heavier, as if resonating with his own heartbeat, until his own heart began to sound as if it could not bear the burden. Shah-Ir suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood and retreated from the shadows. Leonard saw Shah-Ir fall out from the shadows and quickly helped him up. He pursed his lips and looked at Lord Sesamar, who was fighting with Mr. A. He wanted to say something but couldn't. Shah-Ir opened his eyes, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and stared at the cracks on the ground. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Chapter 166. What ability is this? This is piety. The sky is falling. The true creator actually wanted to escape from the God-forsaken land. Doesn't he have no interest in this? Lord Sesama, please call for help. I feel the breath of the true creator. Quickly get Archbishop Anthony to come and save the situation. Shah-Ir shouted very loudly. He looked really anxious. This shout made Leonard, who was supporting him, tremble. The poet looked at Shah-Ir in disbelief and asked, "What are you shouting about?" The real creator. Sword of the goddess. Sesima was also stunned. The breath of the real creator. No wonder the feedback from the holy sword was a little wrong, but the aura was not obvious. Although he had vaguely guessed that there was a problem before, he didn't know the specific reason. Now that he knew, he quickly recited the name of Archbishop Anthony. We can't let them disturb the Lord. A cold light flashed in Mr. A's eyes. He wanted to use the extraordinary ability of the corrupted Baron to prevent Sesima from really calling people by the honorific name, but the holy sword in Sesima's hand isolated this distortion. Although it was a little sluggish, there was still no problem in reciting the honorific name. In that case, Your Excellency the Dark Saint. Mr. A didn't waste any words and just chanted the name of the Venerable Lord. Everyone would do the same. The Aurora Society's speed in calling for help was even faster. Secret Saint, Buddhist teleported over directly with Dark Saint. The two saints stared at Goddess Sword, Sesima together. The three giants of the red gloves almost lost their grip on the holy sword. Although Archbishop Anthony, who received the news, rushed over quickly through the spirit world, he was not slow, but he used the speed of the spirit world creatures to travel. He is far inferior to the demigod of the gate. By the time he arrives, Shah-Ir and others will have died more than 3 times. Sir Sesima, please sacrifice yourself. We will all remember you. After Shah-Ir finished shouting, he turned around and pulled Leonard out. The goddess sword, who was about to fight to the death to delay time for his teammates, almost spit out blood. Even the 2 demigods who had just exchanged glances and were about to clear the battlefield immediately stopped and looked in the direction where Shah-Ir had escaped into the shadows. How could the Church of the Orthodox God actually cultivate such a person? I will never let you get what you want. Sword of the Goddess, Sesima knew that he would definitely not survive, so he ignored his own consumption and stimulated the power of this holy object to the maximum. Several of Sesima's teammates and the Red Gloves team where Leonard was did not run away. They also moved closer and contributed all their spiritual power. These Red Gloves elites all knew that the strong men from the gate path were here, and there was no point in running. If they fought here, maybe they could let Shah-Ir and Leonard escape, so some people helped Sesima, and some people activated the Seal 1 to 63, trying to trap these people in the mirror space. However, all this was in vain. A straight long sword appeared in the hand of the Dark Saint and chopped down heavily at Sesima. There is still a gap between a true demigod and a Sequence 5 holding a holy relic. If it were any other time, I would just play a few moves with you, but now I have some serious business to do and I don't have time to make trouble with you guys. The Dark Saint attacked with all his strength, knocking the Sword of the Goddess to its knees with one blow. The Secret Saint opened a door and directly disrupted the mirror world. The Red Gloves members could not bear the huge spiritual loss and were backlashed and fell into coma. The Secret Saint disappeared and returned quickly, holding Shao-Iyer and Leonard in his hands and throwing them casually on the ground. Because Shao-Iyer's reaction was more intense, he was injured more seriously. Leonard was slightly better, but also in an extremely embarrassed state. Archbishop Anthony. Help. We almost got wiped out while doing a mission at home. Shao-Iyer was almost in despair. Even if Archbishop Anthony could arrive soon, what would be the use? The faster he comes, the faster these hostages will die. It turns out that you have to rely on yourself in life. Swish, swish, swish. These members of the Aurora Society began to execute the Night Watchers on Earth as sacrifices to the Lord. Shao-Iyer received special attention because he was a hermit who betrayed the Lord. He was hung upside down, apparently to receive judgment from the Lord. With his head hanging to the ground, Shao-Iyer knew that the egg, or something like that, was inside. Good news, judging by the sound, Archbishop Anthony had arrived. Bad news, Archbishop Anthony was stopped outside by 2 demigods. If he continued to mobilize people, he would definitely be able to defeat him, but Shao-Iyer was dead. Give your all to the Lord. A rose bishop stood before Shao-Iyer and intended to disembowel him. You're not the only one with faith here. People like you simply don't understand the bond between me and the goddess. Shao-Iyer sneered. Does he have a bond with the goddess of night? Maybe not. But there must be a locator, right? The main reason he ran away just now was to hold a simple prayer ceremony. The sword comes. Shao-Iyer looked at the void in front of him, where a pure white bone sword broke through the space hiding of the secret saint, cut through the deep and endless darkness, returned to the real world, and lifted the seal of the enemy demigod. Unfortunately, the direction it was flying was exactly where the Rose Bishop was. The Sequence 6 who was planning to stab Shao-Iyer was stabbed straight to the bone and was quickly submerged by the darkness like a tide, and stabbed Shao-Iyer in the process. Shao-Iyer watched the blood and flesh of the Rose Bishop flow along the hilt of the sword to his own wound. This is indeed a holy object, connected to the goddess of night. Anyone who becomes an enemy of its holder will suffer misfortune. There's no need for a promotion ceremony before Sequence 5, so. Shao-Iyer's shadow rolled up and directly devoured the Rose Bishop that was dissolving in front of him. His body also showed signs of losing control. Mr. A, who was also attracted by the commotion here, temporarily gave up on releasing a soul and prepared to herd Sesima. His handsome brows knitted together, thinking that these night watchmen must have been infected with disease, and were now unable to move, and could only wait to die. What you said is all right, but I changed my job to notary of the sun path. For the goddess. Shao-Iyer's symptoms of losing control became more severe, as if he was relying on his extraordinary loss of control and fanatical faith to temporarily resist the disease. When the secret saint freed his hands in the demigod battle and teleported back, he was unlucky enough to be a step too slow. He only saw Mr. A trying his best to chop off Shao-Iyer's head, but he still couldn't stop the Rose Bishop from raising the goddess's sword in his hand. I will bring terror upon you, the disobedient ones. Shao-Iyer's flesh and blood squirmed and a small head grew out, roaring loudly. A strong aura of fear burst out from the sword of the goddess in his hand. This was a lower-level manifestation of the power of fear, and it seemed to have been strengthened in some way. Even the Saint of Secrets was in a trance for a moment. Although it is a fair enhancement, I am afraid that anyone who sees this scene will think that it is a devotion to the goddess. Crested Sesima didn't know where to hit the vital points, but didn't Shao-Iyer, the listener, know either. I chop. Chapter 167 Restart. I chop. The white bone sword was stuck in the ground, and mysterious patterns on the sword lit up. The darkness like a tide quickly submerged the ground beneath his feet, and ignored normal obstacles and pushed downwards. Although the notary, who wields a sword and the Rose Bishop. But it's not a big problem. The sword of the goddess is a sealed object and can be used in any way. At night, the power of the night relic doubles, and the power continues to increase with the recognition of the relic. Then, the holy sword's inherent night domain provides cover, and the power of fair and effective increases it again by a little bit. Shah-Ir didn't want anything, he just wanted to lift up the floor and destroy the mystical ritual that concealed the aura underground. As long as the aura of the true creator was exposed, the Lord of Storms might use a big move to wipe out the whole place, and then no one would be able to survive. Shah-Ir's plan was successful, although he was killed by the tyrannical Mr. A after only one strike of the sword. However, the gaps hidden underground, where the hermits and the rose bishops could barely move with all sorts of means, were affected. The mystical rituals that concealed the aura were close to collapse, and even the things nurtured inside might be affected. The secret saint hesitated for a moment. It would be convenient for him to use the box of the old ones to directly put the entire underground area into the box and take it away without revealing the breath of the true creator. However, the current situation was that the egg underground had not yet been fully gestated. It is precisely because of the huge resentment and despair accumulated in the East District and underground that it is being nurtured. If it is put into the box of the past, it will not only be equivalent to cutting the umbilical cord before birth, but also unplugging the network cable of the real creator. It's not easy for the true creator to influence the northern continent through the seal of the God-forsaken land, let alone another level 0 seal. Even the evil god doesn't have such outrageous abilities. The secret saint sighed with a rather vicissitudes of life. Maybe this is fate. I came, I saw, I recorded. Secret saint, Buddhist quickly turned to a page. The extraordinary ability recorded on this page was one of the most precious rewards he received after joining the Aurora Society. A shadow of a mercury snake flew out from the illusory paper. The mercury snakes bite each other's tails and directly restart. The secret saint begins to roll back. The time has not changed, but the positions on the field have changed significantly. Shah-Ir, who was supposed to be killed by Mr. A, was resurrected by the rollback. At this time, he was holding up his sword, shouting lines and preparing to overturn the table again. This time, the secret saint was not affected by the fear aura. He was affected before only because Archbishop Anthony was also affected by the fear aura, and the effects were somewhat linked. In order to avoid any accidents, the secret saint raised his hand and exiled Shur along with the sword of the goddess. Although the secret saint wanted to kill Shah-Ir, the guy who made him waste precious skills, he did not lose the big picture for the sake of small gains. The night domain brought by the holy relic of the night, plus the yin monk hiding in the shadows, and the flesh and blood magic of the rose bishop, the combination of them was too dark. This made the secret saint dare not guarantee that he could kill Shah-Ir instantly and not give him any chance to cause trouble. The rose bishop, whose body has no fatal parts, is too shameless. He always finds a way to self-destruct. Even if it is a flesh bomb, it will not affect the explosion. The secret saint used all his strength to force the struggling Shah-Ir into the illusory gate, watching as his target was swept away by the turbulent flow of time and space. Although one strike may not kill the enemy instantly, it is not difficult to exile him. We should move. The noise outside was getting louder and louder. The secret saint knew that the dark saint might not be able to hold on any longer. He could even hear the sound of a storm. He decided to finish the job and leave before the saints from the Church of Storms arrived. It's time for you to sacrifice yourself. The secret saint directly grabbed Mr. A and teleported him underground. A bright red egg appeared in front of them, and it seemed to be beating continuously. It is not possible to pick the eggs directly, but we can find a temporary carrier to act as a buffer and facilitate the subsequent transplantation. Great Lord, this is my lifelong wish. Mr. A knelt on the ground excitedly. He carefully picked up the egg on the ground, and his chest rotated and opened. Using powerful flesh and blood magic, he directly squeezed his heart into the right side of his chest, and placed the egg in the empty upper room. Plop, plop. The enchanting beauty seemed to hear a strong heartbeat. Her beautiful face was stained with an abnormal blush, and she almost knelt down to kiss the rocks on the ground. The secret saint was calm. He wasn't some real chef either. He simply opened a door and teleported Mr. A out of Backland. Then he flashed back to the demigod battlefield, grabbed the Black Knight whose armor was shattered on a large scale, glanced at the terrifying Archbishop Anthony with a gloomy face, and the thundercloud that had arrived, and teleported away. After the Aurora Society's demigods retreated, the god singer of the Storm Church, Archbishop Horamak Haydn of the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery, and the military's demigods arrived one after another. These people are not slow, but they are still a little behind the double demigod combination that can teleport and quickly process the head and tail. Archbishop Anthony noticed that the mirror world constructed by the team of the Church of Evernight through a certain level 1 seal had long been shattered, and many Red Gloves members, including Sword of the Goddess, Sesamar, were lying on the ground. Although they were in a bad state, they were still alive. These people were left behind intentionally by the Aurora Society to distract the Church of Night and buy time for them to escape and clean up the traces of the occult. Archbishop Anthony briefly scanned the scene and was silent for a moment. Spirits flew out of his body and attached themselves to the various members of the Nighthawks, stabilizing their injuries. He looked towards the void that still held the aura of the holy object. A white bone sword appeared in his hand and slashed through the void. The space concealment that had only collapsed a gap was completely shattered, and sealed artifact 1-63 fell out. This was originally temporarily sealed together with the goddess's sword. Because time is tight, and the secret saint is worried that this sealed object, like the sword, has the Church of Evernight's backhand. So I chose to give up. There's a problem underground. The Archbishop of the Steam Church checked the ground and said. His eyes emitted a ray of light, extracting information about the surrounding environment. Although the traces of mysticism here had been processed, he could still roughly judge some things. Horamak Haydn waved his hand, and the ground began to decompose, revealing a path leading underground. Without the ritual's cover, the remaining aura belonging to the true creator was extracted. The singer of God of the Storm Church had an extremely ugly expression on his face. Chapter 168, God-Forsaken Land. It's obvious that the Aurora Club has made a big move here. Moreover, this time the Aurora Association had grown up their brains. They actually did things very secretly. Although they had demigods, these demigods hid in the dark and only assisted with some necessary auxiliary work. The rest of the work was done by those low and mid-sequence extraordinary people who would not receive too much attention. The demigods of the Gate Path are responsible for creating underground spaces. The demigods of the Hanged Man Path are responsible for directing the flow of negative emotions. After the two demigods set up the basic stage, the rest of the preparations and fundraising were handled by Mr. A and others. For the sake of secrecy, most of the Sequence 6 and Sequence 7 Beyonders were always squatting here to carry out the work. The Orthodox Church hadn't installed a full camera system around Backland. They were lucky to have discovered it in advance, thanks to a certain listener. Due to insufficient intelligence, the two Red Glove elite teams, with 2 Level 1 SEALs as support, were almost wiped out in the anti-gang operation conducted at their doorstep. The Church of Evernight had lost a Sequence 7 and the holy artifact, the Sword of the Goddess, severely injuring 2 elite Red Glove teams. If Archbishop Anthony hadn't been of a low rank, he would have wanted to bring out the Level 0 sealed artifact, Mother of Heaven, to the Aurora Society to settle the cause and effect. The singer of God's face on the other side was even uglier than Archbishop Anthony's. Although he hadn't lost anything, this place was clearly closer to the East District, which should have been the jurisdiction of their Storm Church. Not only had the Church of Night taken over, but the pesky Aurora Society had also escaped. The breath of the true creator still lingered at the scene. How should he explain this to His Holiness the Pope? The Archbishop of the Steam Church was concentrating on collecting information. The 3 Sequence 3 saints cleaned up the scene together. Even though the secret saint had cleaned up some traces of mysticism, they still managed to piece together the general picture of what happened. The Red Gloves of the Church of Evernight were no match for the 2 demigods. The secret prayer of the Church of Evernight stepped forward and finally relied on the power of the holy object, and used the weakness of the Aurora Society as a threat, risking his life to buy precious time for the rescue. Now his whereabouts are unknown. Maybe the people of the Aurora Society want to give birth to something like the offspring of the evil god. The singer of God turned and left. He wanted to mobilize the entire Holy Wind Cathedral to hunt down the Aurora Society. Besides, it would be useless for him to stay because Stormpath was only good at fighting. The Archbishop of the Steam Church stayed to help, but he felt a little sorry. If such a brave general had not come from the Knight Seminary, the Steam Church would have accepted him long ago. Their church was not short of seals, but what they lacked was people who dared to rush forward with seals in their hands. In addition to arranging for the wounded, Archbishop Anthony did not forget to pray to the goddess of night. He believed that the goddess would be able to sense the location of the sword of the goddess. Although Shah Iyer was most likely beyond saving, the holy object still had to be recovered. The prayer was quickly answered and Archbishop Anthony received a revelation, but the revelation was nothing. The Archbishop frowned slightly, realizing that something was wrong. Prayers answered, but the content is blank. A land forsaken by God. There is no sun here, darkness is the only main theme, and the occasional lightning is the only dynamic picture. Shah Iyer never imagined that the exile of the secret saint could exile him to the God-forsaken land. It's just talk, you are really exiled. Originally, the Beyander ability of exile was to throw the target into the turbulence of time and space, and where it was thrown was entirely a matter of luck. At the same level, you have the opportunity to come back after walking for 20 seconds. Shah Iyer, a mid-sequence figure, was almost killed by the time turbulence. He used the night domain to defend against the impact of the time and space turbulence. When a little more light appeared in my sight, it was still lightning flashing overhead. He had come to a dead and silent place, where every inch of soil was filled with curses and ominous aura. Poor Shah Iyer, the madness caused by violently eating a rose bishop, can definitely be suppressed, and the extraordinary loss of control is just a show for outsiders. So what if it's notary plus rose bishop? He has seen all kinds of storms and it is impossible for him to lose control, but he doesn't dare to close the realm of darkness. The food he eats is raw and never crushed. If he dares to leave the realm of darkness, the real creator may be able to sense it and kill Shah Iyer directly through divine punishment. Fortunately, there is still a lot of divine power belonging to the goddess of night remaining in the God-forsaken land. In such places, people use the holy relics of night to cast the domain of night and hide in the darkness. Even the real creator cannot easily capture them. When it comes to secrecy, the night is the authority after all. How do I clear those mental imprints? Shah Iyer felt that there might be only one way, to endure. Wait until the Tarot Club, then go to the top of the gray fog, and let the Nightmare Dragon help you clean up the traces. He glanced down at the sword of the goddess. Logically speaking, unless it was at the level of Saphira Castle, even a true god would find it difficult to respond to the prayers of the God-forsaken land, let alone pay attention to the affairs of the God-forsaken land. But the question now is, can the goddess of night use the goddess sword as an anchor, supplemented by the power of night in the God-forsaken land, to gain some attention? Hateful. How did this woman know that he was planning to take action against the artificial god of death? Shah Iyer looked at the goddess sword in his hand. The signal here is not good, and the goddess of night may not be able to peek at the screen all the time, but she may still be able to sense certain marked auras. Devil Wolf Girl. Shah Iyer murmured softly, and then began to think about how to solve the food problem. Although the Rose Bishop could eat anything, he couldn't eat everything. The creatures in the God-forsaken land were basically contaminated, and eating them would easily make them fat and break acne. I sacrificed so many cans of instant food to Mr. Fool last time. With Little Son's personality, he must not have eaten much, right? Shah Iyer felt relieved. The extraordinary characteristics of the Sun Path were not in vain. He still had the ability to heat a can of food. A fool who doesn't belong to this era. Shah began to request airdrops of supplies. 15 Minsk Street. Klein was awakened from his sleep by the voice. He glanced at the time. It was 5:30, a rather warm time. I am reluctant to get up, but I don't have enough time to sleep any longer. It must be Mr. Angel. There was no reason, but this style allowed Klein to lock onto his target. Klein walked into the bathroom and performed a luck-changing ritual. He then emerged above the gray fog, picked up a can of food he would later have for breakfast, and clicked on the screen to accept the angel's prayer. The prayer scene was dark, and Klein couldn't see anything clearly. He could only hear the voice of the angel. I want canned food. Chapter 169. Where is the location? I'll go get it. I'm starving to death in the God-forsaken land. I want canned food. The angel's request was very simple. He was trapped somewhere and needed food. He remembered that he had sacrificed a batch of canned food. Shah did not ask the world to help him run out early in the morning to find a restaurant and order a hot dipsy pie to be sent to him. They all showed great respect for Mr. Fool. Mr. Angel wants canned food. Klein automatically ignored the first half of the sentence about the angel being trapped. He looked at the few canned foods left. Was it too late for him to go out and buy some? Fortunately, the prayers of the angels continued one after another. Mr. Fool, I'm a little injured, and some canned food can't meet my needs for the time being. I ask you to tell Mr. Hanged Man to prepare some raw meat for me, fish or anything else. I want fresh flesh and blood, not cooked meat. A certain Rose Bishop suddenly realized that since he had mastered flesh and blood magic, why did he still need to eat? Isn't direct magic conversion much more efficient than one step to the stomach? After receiving the message, Klein the Fool immediately forwarded the prayer image to the Hanged Man. He planned to go out early to replenish the canned food he had lost. What if the angel came to him late at night to ask for it? Would he steal it? So, Alger opened his eyes while floating on the sea. He rubbed his head with a headache. It was not convenient for Miss Justice to sacrifice fresh flesh and blood, and it was not convenient for him either, as there were so many crew members on the ghost ship. Alger thought about it and decided that he had to help. After completing this small task, the angel would owe him a favor, which would be a huge profit. He pondered for a moment, changed his clothes and jumped into the sea. This storm pastor is also trying his best. Doesn't he just need fresh flesh and blood? He went fishing himself. He caught some big ones. It is now 5:50, and in the entire tarot club, only Miss Justice is sleeping soundly. Time flies. Monday, October 8, 3 p.m. The deep red light once again illuminated the gray palace, and illusory figures emerged from it. Good afternoon, Mr. Fool. Good afternoon, Mr. Angel. Audrey greeted everyone with full energy, seemingly unaffected by the pressure of life. Mr. Fool nodded sleepily. These past few days, in order to save money, he'd been frantically accepting various commissions. He felt like he'd lost weight. Fortunately, the bounties on offer were still quite high. They were the bounties from pirates at sea. He envied them, but couldn't get any of them. The Hanged Man, Alger, looked at the angel and asked, Mr. Angel, if you need anything else, I can also help you prepare it. Alger only thought that Shah had a special sealed object. Audrey looked over blankly. What did Mr. Angel need? How could she not know? Thank you very much. I'm in a big trouble this time. I may need you to help me prepare some daily necessities from time to time. Shah now discovered with embarrassment that he didn't have a suitable reason to go back. When I left, I was exiled and there was turbulence in time and space. Where can I find the turbulence in time and space when I return? How can he explain his missing person status to St. Samuel's Cathedral? The Fool and the Hanged Man were stunned. Are you kidding me? Are you really trying to survive in the wilderness? Is it that serious? Mr. Angel, are you having any trouble? Is there anything I can help you with? Audrey also looked over. Big trouble, that even Mr. Angel finds troublesome. Son, Derek remained silent. He knew that he could not help Mr. Angel in any way in Silver City. My situation is a bit complicated. Let's talk about it later during the discussion. Sha'ir did not take up Mr. Fool's reading time. I actually want to hear about your troubles first. Fool, Klein thought to himself. Alger silently handed over a copy of Russell's diary. Klein planned to finish reading it quickly. The content was very simple, a variation of the law of Beander aggregation. It was about the natural attraction of high-sequence items to low-sequence items. Even high-sequence items, as long as they were not sealed, would still passively attract low-sequence Beyonders to approach. January 16, the witch tastes really good. Especially their extraordinary abilities. I felt like I had two organs at that moment, experiencing double the pleasure. How could I have such an illusion, but it tasted really good. Emperor, when you wrote this diary, did you know the psychological gender of the witches? Klein felt that the emperor might be high, so he continued to look down. On January 20, I made the second blasphemy card. Where should I hide it? How about disguising it as a bookmark? That would be really interesting. I bet a gold Russell that those idiots in the Church of Steam can't even figure out this card. Finished. Klein almost wanted to flip over to see the back. Emperor, please write clearly what kind of bookmark it is and which book it should be placed in. Klein was a little disappointed, but then he put away the diary page, leaned back in his high-back chair, and said, "You can communicate freely now. Mr. Fool is ready to hear about Angel's misfortunes." Everyone's eyes were focused on the angel. Everyone, I have bad news. Because, I challenged a demigod with a powerful sealed artifact. I was exiled, and caught up in the turbulence of time and space. Even Sha'ir felt it was outrageous. He clearly had a glorious image of someone sacrificing himself to save his teammates, so why is he acting more and more like a second-generation rich kid? Challenging a demigod, facing exile, time and space turbulence. These three words left many Tarot Club members who were still in the middle and low sequence speechless. Audrey listened as if she were listening to a story. Because of Mr. Angel's tone, her worries were reduced. Instead, she couldn't suppress her strong curiosity and asked, "Mr. Angel, have you been stranded on some uninhabited island?" Audrey felt that this was the reason why the angel needed supplies. If so, that's pretty cool. No. You may not believe it, but I seem to have arrived in a place forsaken by God. Angel said this and cooperated by covering his face. This is indeed a bit embarrassing. A land forsaken by God. Audrey turned around a little awkwardly. Is this a joke? The fool almost straightened his back, and Alger's face was full of disbelief. Mr. Angel, are you telling the truth? Is the sky completely dark, with only occasional flashes of lightning? The sun, Derek was the most excited. Mr. Angel actually came to them. Where is the location? I'll go pick it up. The little son is looking forward to it now. Mr. Angel, please say something. You're right. Apart from the fire I made myself and the faint light emitted by the monster's eyes, I have never seen any other light source besides lightning. Sha'ir was also very worried. There was a map of the God-forsaken land in his memory, but it was pitch black. How could he describe his location? What identity should he use to go to Silver City? Do I need to change my vest? Chapter 170 The Hidden World. Angels inexplicably appeared in the God-forsaken land. He didn't even say hello beforehand. He had fought. Audrey recalled that at the last tarot meeting, Mr. Angel had said he wanted to go to the God-forsaken land to search for the extraordinary materials he needed. He asked Little Son to find out the location, and he would ask Mr. Fool to help him grant his spirit body there. But now, how did Mr. Angel come directly to the God-forsaken land? Mr. Angel, if this is really a God-forsaken place, how are you going to get back? Miss Justice frowned slightly and couldn't help but glance at Mr. Fool. Mr. Fool must have a way to help Mr. Angel, right? Klein the Fool remained mysteriously silent. He had no idea what to do. The gray fog could transport raw meat, but not living people, probably not. Klein's intuition told him that it was best not to do this, otherwise something bad might happen. I don't know now. There's always a way. Shah-Ir currently has no clue. Is the appearance of the goddess of night useful? The fool sighed helplessly and said, I can try, but it's not safe and I don't recommend it. The meaning of fool is very simple. It is best not to let him help, as accidents are likely to happen. Although the other members of the tarot club were disappointed, they could understand. After all, Mr. Fool currently had significant limitations on outside interference and was unable to precisely ensure Mr. Angel's safety. Mr. Angel, how are you injured? Alger asked. With such a launching player, Alger was really worried that Angel would be careless and die in the new map. I'm fine. I do know a few healing spells, and my injuries have healed. However, I'm not used to the environment of the God-forsaken land. It's full of pollution and curses. If I didn't have the right seal, I wouldn't even be able to find clean drinking water. Shah-Ir was somewhat glad that he had the Eye of Wind with him, which allowed him to use some water-attributed spells and similar spells in disguise. Otherwise, his way of survival would be much more difficult. The water in the God-forsaken land is not undrinkable, but the pollution index exceeds the standard. Can't even find clean drinking water. Audrey felt a little sympathetic towards Mr. Angel's situation. She even wondered if she should ask Mr. Fool to send Mr. Angel some red wine instead of water. Derek, the son, also calmed down from his excitement. His expression turned serious. He looked at the angel anxiously and said, Mr. Angel, you may not know some of the rules here. Never stay in the dark for too long, or you might be drowned and disappear. Be careful in places without light, there may be monsters emerging from the darkness. Stay away from those seemingly abandoned temples and ruins, and don't make too much noise while exploring. You can't eat anything you encounter, whether it's plants or monsters. If you do, you might be contaminated by their blood and flesh. Without any hesitation, Derek directly laid out all the precautions that the residents of Silver City must keep in mind. He seemed to be really afraid that the angel would die, so he explained it very carefully, without any intention of exchanging this information for anything else. Is the God-forsaken land so dangerous? The fool, the hanged man, and Justice were all shocked. There is no access to safe food, terrifying monsters spawn in the darkness at any time, and the wilderness is full of dangers. Little son lives in such a place. What you said, I can deeply understand it. Shah-Ir nodded in agreement. He had experienced the positive buff brought by the power of darkness. The night domain that comes with the Holy Sword of Night does not have this kind of master-killing, negative buff, otherwise Shah-Ir would have thrown away this sword. If he really lost it, he would have found a place to bury it. Mr. Angel, what are you going to do next? Alger couldn't offer any good advice. With no way to return, rashly contacting the City of Silver might not be a good idea, but surviving in the wilderness was definitely not safe either. Let's take it one step at a time. I will first gather the extraordinary materials I need, and then think about other problems. Shah-Ir decided to be more pragmatic. Silver City, we definitely have to go there, but we need to get some business done first. As expected of Mr. Angel, he remained so calm at this time. Justice Audrey breathed a sigh of relief. If Mr. Angel wasn't in a hurry, she didn't need to worry too much about him. Mr. Angel, if there is anything you need my help with, please let me know. Audrey emphasized solemnly. She felt that in such a dangerous time, one should provide help to the best of one's ability. Their tarot club is a friendly organization that helps each other. Of course you are trustworthy. Shah-Ir nodded. He knew that Audrey really wanted to help him and was not trying to curry favor with him at this time. After Audrey got a positive response, she couldn't help but nodded, and she felt that she was more in harmony with the angel. In addition to maintaining the overall atmosphere of the tarot club, Justice also cherishes the angel as a netizen. However, Audrey suddenly thought of something and looked at Mr. World, who had remained silent throughout the entire process. Audrey's movements were quite obvious. Alger and Derek were also stunned, and then looked at the World, who was sitting at the end and had not said much. The World was a new member, sitting too far away and not speaking actively. In addition, the news about Angel was quite eye-catching, so these people all forgot about the world. Among these people was even Mr. Fool, who was worried about how to retrieve the angel and what to do if he couldn't. He was thinking about the possibility of sacrificing a living person. In addition, Justice, the Hanged Man, and the Sun were talking all the time, so he did not control his trumpet to say anything. The four members on the left and right sides of the upper bronze table had been discussing with each other, completely forgetting that there was another member at the bottom. Mr. World is not participating. Audrey felt that her tarot card of unity and friendship would have some discordant elements. Alger frowned. Although they had indeed marginalized the world a little last time, didn't the world have its own reasons? If you had come closer, integrated yourself, and accepted the fact that you were less experienced, we could still get along. What are you doing now? Cutting yourself off from the tarot club. Isolating all of us. The little son was kinder. He looked at the world and said, Mr. World, maybe he doesn't understand. After all, he was new here and didn't know what God's forsaken land and Silver City were. He was confused and wanted to ask questions, but the timing was not right and he couldn't get a word in. Chapter 171 The Rich Are Gods. I haven't heard of the City of Silver. The world seemed to have seen a real angel, and he quickly walked down the stairs. The atmosphere in the field fell into silence for a moment. Alger didn't want to explain. He felt that veteran members should still maintain a necessary aloofness. Derek didn't know how to explain it. He lived in Silver City, but he didn't know how to introduce it. In the end, it was Miss Justice who took the initiative to provide necessary explanations in order to maintain the overall atmosphere of the Tarot Club. Klein the Fool regretted again why he placed the world in a corner. The angel always easily controlled the rhythm of the conversation. Miss Justice maintained the atmosphere of the entire Tarot Club. The two of them sat on the left side of the long bronze table, and the other seats on the edge were completely ignored. The audience was really terrifying. Mr. Angel, I've heard some information about the extraordinary materials you need. Derek discovered that the angel was in no hurry to come to Silver City, so he suppressed his excitement and presented the information. What do you need? Shaw nodded and asked. I now need an extraordinary weapon that can enhance my strength. But I'm not in a hurry. You can pay me later. Little Son shook his head. He knew that Angel was not in a convenient situation right now, so he accepted to owe him the money for the time being. It doesn't matter, there is still a way. If you want the Sequence 7 Magician's Potion formula, then help, son, find a suitable weapon. The rest will be cashed in gold pounds. Shaw smiled and turned to look at the world, and said, No problem, but I want to know the potion formula first so that I can collect extraordinary materials in advance. I will definitely complete the deal, and I dare not lie to Mr. Fool. Mr. World, who was short of money, made a humble request. I trust you won't damage your reputation over a transaction that doesn't exceed £1,000. Shaw agreed and threw a piece of white paper with a potion formula written on it to the table of World. The true root of the Misty Tree Man. How much did these cost? The World thought with mixed feelings. Alger realized there was a need. He coughed lightly and said, There will be a pirate festival being held on the Sonia Sea soon. The ships of the 4 pirate kings and 7 pirate generals may all participate. There will be a lot of trading of extraordinary materials at that time. Perhaps you will come across the extraordinary materials you need. If you need anything, you can think about what kind of compensation you can give me in advance. Kill me. Although he knew it was just a normal transaction, Klein still gnashed his teeth in hatred for the small wallet in Ihao. This is how you want to play, right? Haha, I have an incomplete version of the Sequence 4 potion formula that you can use. Although it is incomplete, this does not affect the value of the formula. This level of mysterious knowledge will basically not appear on the market. I'll give you a friendly price, how about 8,000 gold pounds? The main ingredients of the recipe are relatively complete. The world really hopes that the hanged man can be the savior. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't go too far, Klein would have wanted to put the price at 5,000 gold pounds and sell it off directly. Selling it would be a profit. What he lacks now is the gold pounds to put in his pocket. I can accept installment payment. I want money. The world has made up its mind that it must sell it out to make some money back. Mr. World, may I ask what path this incomplete formula is? Audrey asked curiously. Sequence 4 feet no darkness, potion recipe for the sun pathway. The potion formula required by both the hanged man and the sun. Klein added secretly. What he didn't know was that this recipe could only be used by him in the entire tarot club. There are 4 full 5 families and 1 weird 3 family mixed in. Sorry, I don't need it. Alger shook his head. The experienced man wouldn't fall for that. It's not enough that it's incomplete, it also needs to be resold. Whoever wants it can have it. Little Sun really wanted it, but he was still far from sequence 4, so he didn't say anything. The world was struck by lightning when it saw this. It was doomed, it couldn't be sold. Shah-Ir glanced at the world, but he couldn't bear it. He chuckled and said, Miss Justice, you might be able to use this. The spectator channel and the sun channel are also interchangeable. Audrey's eyes lit up when she heard this. She could also use this recipe. Our audience and sun interchangeable. Klein's dead heart came back to life. My formula can guarantee its authenticity. I can accept a small payment first and then make up the rest later. Klein placed all his hopes on the wealthy Miss Justice, and at the same time, he felt a little more grateful to the angel. If the angel could continue to persuade Justice, it would be even more perfect. Mr. Angel, as long as you help me, I will definitely find a way to get you out of the God-forsaken land. The fool is now almost praying to the angel. The days of working hard to make money are a bit tortuous. Miss Justice was tempted and thought it would be a good idea to learn more about him, but she was interrupted by the angel. Angel made a calming gesture. Justice nodded knowingly, indicating that he wanted to bargain. Although Audrey was surprised, she was also happy that the angel was thinking about it for her. Mr. World, you're well aware that while potion formulas are important to high-sequence creatures, the corresponding ingredients are even more difficult to collect. No one would attempt an incomplete formula, let alone use it to find a new path. Shah-Ir folded his hands and said, but this price does not affect the value of the formula itself. In the eyes of those who need it, it is a treasure that cannot be purchased anywhere else even at a premium. Klein had already agreed to lower the price, but he still planned to be a little tougher to make his position clear. How about £7,000? Shah-Ir felt that he still had to chop it down. He couldn't let Mr. Fool live too well, otherwise he would easily suffer bad luck. But he also has to make some money, otherwise Shah-Ir's own formula and information will not be able to be sold. Make a deal. The world agreed immediately. Although he felt it was worth £10,000, it would be useless if he couldn't sell it. Audrey blinked as she watched all this. She actually wanted to think about whether she should buy it or not. Now that Mr. Angel has agreed on her behalf, why not buy it? I have one small request. Shah-Ir gave a subtle smile. You say. For the sake of money, Klein decided to listen. I can actually see that you have some of the formula for the sun path. A mere incomplete sequence 4 formula is an unnecessary burden for Miss Justice. But if you could package and sell the sun pathway sequence 9 to sequence 5, along with the incomplete sequence 4 formula you possess, I think Miss Justice would be happy to accept the deal. As Shah-Ir spoke, Audrey's eyes beside him became brighter and brighter. Chapter 172, Repairing the Graves of the Dead. A complete set of formulas for Sun Path sequence 9 to sequence 4, sold together in a bundle. Although the sequence 4 formula is incomplete, but there is absolutely no problem selling such a set of formulas for 30,000 gold pounds. Klein instantly understood the angel's sinister intentions. It's not that he hasn't thought about this problem. He was the one who sold the Little Sun potion formula. But Klein was somewhat reluctant to sell such a complete set of formulas to Miss Justice's family. Miss Justice's family was definitely very wealthy. If his family collected this kind of systematic potion formula, would other ordinary players still play with it? And this can be sold for at least £30,000, and £50 is not out of the question if the negotiation goes well. How much do you plan to offer to trick me into selling it? Mr. Fool was in a state of confusion, weighing all the pros and cons, and no longer had the desire to bundle and sell at a discount. He doesn't have to sell this formula at the Tarot Club. What if he can sell more of this hard currency through another channel? On the other side, Alger and Derek were also somewhat wrong. The former had not expected that the angel would actually make such a request. For a moment, he even felt that the angel wanted to take a kickback and make a fortune. The latter heaved a sigh of relief. Derek felt that he didn't need to worry about potion formulas until sequence 4. He just needed to work hard to accumulate more resources. And what about Miss Justice? She was so excited that she almost stood up. Her beautiful eyes, like gemstones, looked at the world, and said in an extremely soft voice, "Mr. World, if you really have these potion formulas and are willing to sell them, I am willing to buy them at a suitable price that will definitely satisfy you." Miss Audrey unconsciously clenched her fists. She was already imagining how Earl Hall would praise her smart and sensible little daughter if the deal was really completed. She fantasized and glanced at the angel beside her. Her beautiful eyes were filled with indescribable charm. Mr. Angel must have considered her a friend. There's a little confusion on the world side, or more accurately, on the fool side. Shaw Iyer was just watching the show. He sympathized with Mr. Fool's difficulty in working and just gave him some advice. Mr. Fool has the resources at his disposal. If he can find a suitable target to invest with, he won't have to worry about resources before sequence 5. Why would he bother doing those hard-earned jobs just to make ends meet? It's just half of the Sun path. Just sell it to the Hall family. Even if you don't sell it, the Hall family will be able to control most of the audience path in the future. It's better to sell it directly. The extraordinary materials of the Sun path are mainly in the hands of the Church of Intis. If the nobles of Loan want them, they can spend money. It is easy to praise the Sun when you spend money. Do you still hesitate to sell this kind of thing? Klein could also think of some of the things that Shaw Iyer could think of. What made Klein angry now was that he had actually removed the incomplete sequence 4 formula from the bundled sale. How could he sell it at a price that would be acceptable to the Loan nobles? Damn, Angel, you actually plotted against me. Miss Justice, you know the value of a systematic potion formula. How many gold pounds are you willing to spend on it? The world said in a hoarse voice. His heart was bleeding at this moment, as he had realized that he could not sell it for the high price of £30,000. Mr. Angel, how can you side with the rich? Does Miss Justice's family need you to help them save money? Klein suddenly felt that if he couldn't rescue the angel, there was nothing he could do. It was normal for him to be powerless in a place like the God-forsaken land. Let's make it £20,000. It's a pretty reasonable price. Miss Justice can also promise you that she will not sell the potion formula you sold her at the Tarot Club. Shaw Iyer answered directly on behalf of Audrey. He didn't consider the issue of Audrey's opposition. What do you think, Mr. World? Miss Justice did not object. She felt that there was nothing wrong with what Mr. Angel said. Rather, if you can buy it for £20,000, it's a good deal. She didn't mind the angel making the decision for her, as the deal was proposed by the angel itself. Audrey didn't see any problem with this at all. I agree. The world was silent for a moment, then spoke in a hoarse voice. He felt like he was being manipulated by the angel, but he couldn't refuse the money that could be immediately given, and the current atmosphere wasn't suitable for further bargaining. Klein felt that if he tried to lower the price, the angels would really say, "Really? Then I don't want it." It's not hard to guess Miss Justice's reaction. Although Miss Justice wants it, she doesn't have to buy it. She will definitely support the angel. Happy business, Mr. World. Audrey smiled reservedly at the world. She was now almost impatient to go back and tell Earl Hall the good news. Of course, the specific matters still needed to be arranged. After all, the Tarot Club could not be exposed. I hope to settle it all at once. The world put forward its own demands. When facing Miss Justice, there is no need to pay in installments. He wants to make money as soon as possible. Of course, once I've made the arrangements, the money can be transferred to a designated anonymous account, or through other means. Miss Justice agreed very readily. The money could be reimbursed anyway, so Miss Jungyi didn't hesitate at all. After the deal was finalized, Audrey looked at the angel as if she wanted to say something. Shah Iyer waved his hand. He didn't want to listen to any nonsense. The audience lady understood. The corners of her mouth rose slightly, and she gave up the idea of saying anything. Overall, everyone is satisfied with this transaction. Klein also has the money to purchase the subsequent formula from Shah Iyer, which is really gratifying. Afterwards, other members began to share some of their own news. The Hanged Man Alger said, Vice Admiral Disease has taken over Vice Admiral Hurricane's fleet and become the new pirate general. She was once a famous pirate, formerly known as Tracy the Diseased Maid. Shah Iyer smiled when he heard the name. This pirate general was almost out of work because of him. Her business had declined significantly, and, Ince Air, was largely responsible. It's because the god of death has a special way that the dead can come back to life and continue digging graves. It took a large population to build the mausoleum for George III, and the number of people who died in it was also huge. By directly using the dead, Incel can reduce the Lowen royal family's human trafficking in Backland and the smuggling of primitive tribes from the colonies at sea. Although it cannot be completely banned due to the huge profits involved, it is completely possible to curb it. Chapter 173, So Ugly. The Black Emperor's deification ceremony required his subjects to build a tomb for him. George III could even use it in the primitive tribes of the southern continental colonies, so there is no reason why the real people couldn't use it either. Inzel played the role of the undead, digested the potion, and saved some contributions to exchange for some things from the Lowen Earth Chamber. The construction progress of the Lowen royal family has increased, the risk of exposure has decreased, and the controllability of the situation has increased. It's a win-win situation. The only sacrifices are some unfortunate people who work themselves to death in their lifetime and then have to be awakened to work themselves to death again after death. This is extremely inhumane. But Shah Iyer didn't care. The dead had to make way for the living. Anyway, something strange had happened in the underworld, and even if he died, he wouldn't be able to find the underworld. It was better to work honestly. He would save the soul, if necessary according to the specific situation. In theory, there is nothing wrong with Shah Iyer's approach. But Backland, especially the East District, has accumulated too much resentment and negative emotions. The resentment of the living is great, and the resentment of those who have to work after death is even greater. These resentments became the breeding ground for evil gods. The Aurora Society's troubles might also be due to Shah Iyer. It was absolutely not unfair for him to be involved in the Aurora Society's rituals, as there happened to be a mausoleum connected to the underground nearby. The dead must always give way to the living. Shah Iyer spoke casually, as if he was saying, Lieutenant General Hurricane, and Lieutenant General Disease. Alger briefly introduced some famous pirates. Audrey also began to share her own experiences. Recently, there have been 11 serial murders in Backland. The target is women who used to be streetwalkers and now have regular jobs. Their abdomens were cut open, and their internal organs were completely gone. Although some of these crimes are copycats, Backland has undoubtedly received a brutal murderer, and the killer has yet to be found. Audrey said this with some anger. Devil worship. Blood cult. Alger guessed. This is a ritual for advancing to sequence 5 in the demonic path. The killer will consume the victim's internal organs to satisfy their desires. The minimum requirement is 13 people, and the more complete the ritual, the better. The son, Derek explained. It's Cruel, horrible. Audrey hadn't expected that there would be a demon in Backland. Just kill the most sinful ones. Don't demons like corrupted people? This demon picks on women who have fallen into depravity and are now back on track. Isn't it just to taste the despair and unwillingness they feel? Shah Iyer's tone was cold. He planned to kill the dog sometime. If this demon dog doesn't die, it will definitely target the ladies of the Comprehensive Service Company. They are all adjacent channels. Doesn't the debauched trio have any dignity? He is extremely vicious and bullies the weak and fears the strong. Klein constructed such an image of the devil in his mind. I think the church will sort it out quickly. Audrey could only comfort the angel in this way. She could see that Mr. Angel wanted to go in person, but he was trapped in the God-forsaken land and couldn't come back to deal with it. In order to make the topic more lighthearted, Miss Justice chose to say, I've noticed that at extraordinary gatherings outside, there are rarely any transactions involving potion formulas. Because of the different circles, the extraordinary gatherings that can verify the authenticity of the formula are either run by informants from the Orthodox Church, or they are mixed with informants from the Orthodox Church or MI9. Shah Iyer also cooperated and changed the subject. Yes, the vast majority of secret gatherings of a certain size have a background in the True God Church. Alger also laughed. He knew this all too well. Without some official background, how could such a secret underground opportunity become big? I would have wiped it out long ago. Son, Derek didn't understand any of this, so he might be telling us about his side of the story. The City of Silver recently organized an expedition to other unknown areas and discovered a half-ruined temple. The statue enshrined inside was a strange one, a man nailed upside down on a cross, and the surface of the statue was smeared with blood. Do you know what this statue symbolizes? Little Son was very curious about this question. Are you sure it's a male? Shah Iyer asked the question that concerned him most. Is the style of painting real deities so depraved that one can even tell their gender? Yes, the characteristics are very obvious. The pure Little Son said affirmatively. Oh, that's the true creator. Shah Iyer revealed the answer directly, which silenced the fool who wanted to show off. The true creator. Derek, Alger, Audrey and the others were stunned. The fool chuckled, or the fallen creator. Klein didn't miss this opportunity after all. You were right. Corruption is indeed the main power of this evil god. The very name reveals the fallen nature of all living beings. Shah Iyer cooperated by raising his hand. You even know his name. Mr. Fool's lips. But how could there be a statue of the true creator in the God-forsaken land? Alger frowned. Doesn't this seem inconsistent in terms of time and space? I was able to accidentally come to the God-forsaken land, so why can't the true creator have a statue here? Since there are statues, it means there are believers. This is reasonable. Shah Iyer's words left Alger speechless. This seems to be the truth. As Derek listened to Shah Iyer and Alger's continuous introductions, his eyes showed deep worry. Mr. Angel, our Silver City's new elder, Elder Lovia, is already a Sequence 5 shepherd, and her condition is very abnormal. I'm worried. Derek was a little panicked. According to what the angel said, could Elder Lovia have become a believer in the true creator? That's the evil god. Something's wrong. What's wrong? Shah Iyer planned to ask specifically. It's just, the whole person is a little crazy, irritable, crying and laughing at the same time. Derek didn't know how to describe it. He hadn't felt it before, but the more he thought about it now, the more he felt it was problematic. It felt like he was having a conversation with an invisible being. I just want to ask one thing. Little Son, you know how fanatics behave, right? Did she? Shah Iyer sighed. It seemed that he could not contact this lady. After all, Junzao might be paying attention to her. It seems, not. Derek was stunned. He didn't know much else, but he definitely knew what a fanatic looked like. Although he had little contact with Elder Lovia, in a place like Silver City, it was not difficult to tell who had light in their eyes, who still had faith, and who was left with only despair. I'll teach you the best way to tell the difference. You can casually belittle the idol in front of her. Like, he's really ugly, He's not wearing any clothes, he doesn't look holy at all, and so on. You can pretend to be chatting casually with your friend. As long as she doesn't react in any special way, then she is not a believer in the true creator. Shah shared his experience. The Tarot Club members looked at him with increasingly strange eyes. Can these be used to describe evil gods? There is a reason why no one in the Tarot Society has ever suspected that angels are followers of evil gods. Just when everyone thought this was the limit of an angel, he added, "If she truly believes in the evil god, then I can help you deal with her. If Silver City doesn't want her, give her to me." Chapter 174 Death is like a roadside. Lua Weya, if you don't want it, just give it to me. Although Shah couldn't figure it out for a moment, even if Lua Weya really gave it to him, what use could it be? But such a shining soul would be great even for grazing. Shah's words were so natural that no one in the Tarot Club reacted. Son Derek's worries about Luvia disappeared a little. Little Son began to reflect on himself, wondering if he was too sensitive. How could he doubt his own elders so easily? The Fool and the Hanged Man had gradually become accustomed to the angel's style of painting, and were very calm at this time. Even Miss Justice only asked curiously at this time, "Mr. Angel, are you interested in the shepherd elders of Silver City?" Audrey stared at the angel, without blinking. "Well, you're not interested. Female, young, sequence 5, what a perfect servant. Even if she's a little crazy, isn't it fun to try to treat her?" Shah thinks this kind of loyal and gloomy lady is very good. That seems to be the truth. Miss Audrey's thoughts gradually went astray. Mr. Fool's mouth twitched. "You mean, attendant. A sequence 5 will be your attendant. What sequence are you in?" "Ahem, Mr. Angel, the son," means that he is worried that this shepherd elder will be influenced by the true creator. Alger coughed lightly. He now almost began to doubt which royal family Shah was. The tone of voice, not many people can match this, right? Angel frowned and looked at the Hanged Man in silence. Alger, the Hanged Man, felt extremely uncomfortable being looked at by Shah, and seriously suspected that the angel might directly attack him, just like when he had just comforted Miss Justice. Even if she was influenced by the evil god, so what? As long as there's still hope, and as long as I like it, I can pay the price and ask Mr. Fool to help. How could I change my mind so easily because of such a small risk? Angel gave a genuine smile. Everyone in the Tarot Club fell silent again. In addition to feeling the strong personal style in Angel's tone, it is more because Angel said a lot of sense. "Son," Derek suddenly realized. The Hanged Man chose to keep his mouth shut. Miss Justice's eyes lit up. She liked this style of doing things. As for the Fool, Mr. Fool didn't want to talk. He was already worried about how to fish out the angel, so how could he get one more? This time, the Tarot Club passed in a relaxed and joyful atmosphere. Shah successfully prolonged the gathering and drained Klein's spiritual energy. He used the gray fog space as a platform to contact the Nightmare Dragon and cleared the spiritual imprint contained in the Rose Bishop's characteristics. A land forsaken by God. Shah opened his eyes again. He still knew the approximate topographic map of the East Continent. Silver City is in the west, Moon City is in the east. He's somewhere in the middle. When it's time to cheat, you still have to cheat. You can't live without suffering. Shah pulled out the Holy Sword of Night, stuck in the ground. This level 1 sealed item still had some negative effects, but now it was incredibly docile. The dark aura was soothed, calm and distant. Nightmare Dragon can just assign a decent virtual personality to serve as a graphics card, and Shah will be able to unleash the strength of a saint. First, collect the necessary extraordinary materials, and then go to Silver City. Shah's figure gradually dimmed, as if blending into the darkness. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the echoes on the spiritual level exposed the monsters hiding in the dark. Thursday, October 11th. Backland, East District. The demon dog targeted a poor lady who was a little late coming home. Even when facing such a weak prey, this big black-haired dog cunningly set up a barrier to isolate the breath. Unfortunately, before it could take action, a figure wearing a crimson cloak was reflected in its lava-like eyes. At the same time, a figure wearing a black Gothic court dress and a small round top hat appeared behind it. The two vengeful spirits attacked together, and a sequence 6 demon dog died peacefully. Without even a chance of demonization, it became an extraordinary characteristic. After Sharon saw the demon dog, she finally understood why. Sure, didn't tell her who he was going to deal with in advance. This was the malicious perception to prevent demons. You don't even know who you're dealing with. Where does the malice come from? The counterattack by the alien method was not fake. After a moment of distraction, the hired stoker went home and went to sleep with peace of mind. Wrathful spirit, Shah-Ir asked Sharon, "Do you want this body?" A sequence 6 body is quite useful when used as a zombie. It might have an owner. Sharon tossed the Beander characteristic to Shah-Ir lightly. Both of them were quite relaxed. After all, the isolation barrier set up by the demon dog was still in effect. It's okay. If it's sequence 5, we'll work together. If it's sequence 4, we'll call for help. Shah-Ir was very calm. He had the strength of a pirate admiral. Sharon lacked a suitable seal, but at least he was a pirate lieutenant general, not counting his subordinates. How dare the master of the demon dog seek revenge? Keep it if you want. Sharon had no interest in this black dog. Then I will offer my sacrifice to the mother tree of desire. In line with the principle of not wasting anything, Shah-Ir planned to have his men sacrifice it directly. If anyone could divine the whereabouts of the dog, then, that was courageous. Sharon instinctively disliked Shah-Ir's mention of the mother tree of desire. But his mentality of, "Do you want it? You don't want it. I don't want it either, so sacrifice it to the mother tree," made Miss Sharon feel a little strange, and not so disgusted. "You didn't put in much effort, so I won't pay you. Next time you have something similar, you can ask me for help." After he finished speaking, he disappeared onto the street with the body of the big dog. Sharon looked at the direction where Shah-Ir left for a while, and her figure gradually disappeared. It is unknown how shocked and angry the Apostle of Desire was when his dog was stolen. Just a demon dog, dead as a roadside dog. After Shah-Ir returned to the half-whitewashed hilly party, he called the zombie Jason and the werewolf Tail. Sacrifice this dog to the mother tree. Kill those copycat criminals in the same way and leave their entrails beside them. Hurry up and finish this case, so that our girls won't be trembling and have no energy to go to work. Shah-Ir gave orders, and his two men looked at each other and smiled cruelly. Chapter 175 Artificial Death. A land forsaken by God. Holding a white-boned sword, Shah-Ir arrived at the City of Silver using dark stealth and psychological invisibility. The City of Silver has rituals and guards around the city-state. But it was of no use. With just a little use of the remaining power of darkness in the God-forsaken land, the defense of Silver City would be like a blind man, directly ignoring the stowaway. Taking Little Sun's knowledge into consideration, Shah-Ir casually read the mind of a low-sequence Beander and learned the specific location of the tomb of the previous chief of Silver City. This is no secret. Because Silver City would warn its residents not to get close to that place, they would naturally need to be told the approximate area. In order to keep a low profile, Shah-Ir chose to walk on remote roads without any lights. As for the dangers in the dark, the Holy Sword of Night will take care of it. His movements were very smooth. No normal person would walk in the dark without a lantern. The tomb of the previous chief was built in the traditional inverted triangle shape. Shah-Ir found a good position, dug a hole with the white-boned sword, and with the help of the Rose Bishop's flesh and blood magic, he directly passed through the layers of barriers and traps at the entrance of the mausoleum to the main room. He landed gorgeously and looked at the coffin in front of him that began to shake. This is at least a sequence 3 that failed to advance normally. It's not easy to fight. Shah-Ir sensed the difficulty. He hung the Holy Sword of Night in his hand above the coffin and performed a simple ritual magic. Using the holy sword as a medium and the dark divine power as a source, he slightly displayed the effects of the extraordinary ability possessed by the Night Path Sequence 1. Spirit Commander, can put nature spirits and undead souls to sleep, and can also command them. Such a goddess sword hangs above the head. The coffin in front of Shah Ayar, which was almost threatening to steal the house, gradually became quiet. It doesn't look like it's dead, it looks more like it's asleep. Only at this time did Shah Ayar feel that the goddess of night was a good woman. This woman is quite useful when she is useful. When you fall asleep, you dream. This is common among the dead. Shah Ayar chuckled, and placed his hand on the surface of the coffin, feeling a cool touch. Inside his mind island, the virtual personality, specially created by the nightmare dragon, entered the coffin through dreams. Those who should rest have rested, and those who should live must continue to live. Shah Ayar could see that illusory black tubes were spreading out from the coffin, as if connecting to infinity. This is the pollution of artificial death. The artificial death god is the product of the unique activation of the death god. The degree of activation is not high, and it cannot actively respond to the prayers of believers for the time being, but it can influence the beyonders who failed to ascend through the death god path to transform into undead monsters. Having crossed the seal of the god-forsaken land and come under its influence, should we say that he is worthy of being called the god of death? Shah Ayar was now even more suspicious, wondering if the goddess of night was diving. The artificial god of death can affect the god-forsaken land. What about the goddess of night relying on her holy sword and divine power? Whatever, if you have the guts, chop me down across the god-forsaken land. The Sequence 6 Rose Bishop smiled calmly, feeling that the little darkness was nothing to be afraid of. Raging Sea, located between the North Continent and the South Continent. Created by the god of death during his escape back to the Southern Continent. The place where the god of death fell and the place where the treasure is hidden are in a secret space here. The correct order of exploration should be that the son of death, Azek Eggers, takes the Azek copper whistle and then takes back the ring of death from the Admiral of Hell. Wait until the memory and strength of the son of death are almost restored, and then follow the induction and summons to find him. However, the son of death seemed to be being watched by the angel of imagination, Adam. Then just skip it. The nightmare dragon Alisuhad appeared on the raging sea, sensing the location of the death ruins. It can be done. Because his virtual personality is inside a body that is connected to an artificial reaper. He can trace that power backwards, and he can also borrow the power of his past self, the power of the all-seeing eye, through yesterday reappearance. As long as you search patiently, you will definitely get something. The Sea of Rage is so big, and you can also use different identities to blend into the ranks of the spirit cult praying to the artificial god of death, collect more clues, and capture the corresponding mystical connections. Over in Silver City, Shah Ayar waited until the situation in the coffin stabilized, then he opened the coffin and stepped away. His small body of Sequence 6 could not withstand the contamination from a saint. The former chief of Silver City, the huge figure of Havoc, emerged from it. After the transformation, his height was nearly 4 meters, his arms and legs were long, and his body was covered with white feathers stained with light yellow oil. He looked like a small giant, full of explosiveness and power. This account failed to switch from the Dusk Giant path, Sequence 4 Demon Hunter to the Death path, Sequence 3 Ferryman, and was also contaminated by the artificial death. The original owner, Havoc, felt that it was useless and sold it to Shah Ayar at a low price. This account did not die either, because the characteristic of the Sequence 3 Ferryman is that it will not die naturally, but will gradually transform into an intelligent undead creature. As for the pollution problem, as long as it can be controlled, there won't be any problem, right? Shah Ayar simply debugged the new account and grasped the Holy Sword of Night, hanging on the coffin in his hand. The three forces of the Dusk Path, the Death Path, and the Dark Path still suppressed the white hair emerging on his body, which was the so-called pollution. Although none of the three paths of Black Death are good at healing, they are still quite good at sealing and erosion. As long as you control the strength and use this power to flush your current body, there is still hope of temporarily suppressing the pollution. The only problem was that it looked a bit funny for a 4-meter tall man to hold a bone sword that was more than 1 meter long. Shah-Ir tried to change it, and with the help of some appropriate flesh and blood magic, his height shrank back to more than 2 meters, which made him feel more comfortable. Brush. The holy sword of night was thrown back to the Rose Bishop. The Rose Bishop vanished into the shadows, holding the holy sword of night. The Sequence 3 ferryman returned to his coffin. He still needed some time to complete his predecessor's failed job transfer mission, and to provide some necessary support for the Nightmare Dragon in his search for the Death Treasure. As for Luvia, although she has not yet turned to the true Creator, Shah-Ir feels that there is nothing wrong with believing in the true Creator. Didn't the true Creator just ignore the City of Silver? He didn't take the initiative to help, nor did he take the initiative to harm, so why should he have such high demands on the evil god? Shah-Ir thought so while sitting in Luvia's house. He felt that as long as he waited for the door to open and the owner of the place to come back and greeted him quickly enough, it would be a friendly visit. Chapter 176. A very good woman. Time waits and waits. When Shah-Ir was about to fall asleep, he heard the sound of the door opening. The person who opened the door was a lady wearing a black robe with purple patterns. She was gorgeous and elegant. She looked to be in her early 30s and had a pair of gray eyes that seemed to be able to see through the soul. I think I can explain. Shah-Ir was in someone else's house, sitting on someone else's chair, reading someone else's book and claiming he could explain it. He might think he could explain it, but Luo Weya, who was a little irritated, obviously didn't want to listen. She didn't listen to any movement before she entered the room. How could this be something clean? Take it first and talk about it later. The shadows in the room surged towards Shah-Ir as if alive. Luvia used the extraordinary ability of the warrior that she had grazing on, and used the power of the morning light to condense a two-handed heavy sword and slashed at Shah-Ir. It seemed that she felt that the part below the neck was a bit of a hindrance. You're welcome. Shouldn't Silver City at least be a little more friendly towards outsiders? Shah-Ir did not move. When Luo Weya approached, he expanded the dark domain of the holy sword. The wriggling shadows calmed down and the terrifying aura took effect automatically. Luo Weya paused in her attacking posture, not only because the whispers in her ear weakened, but also because she saw the thing that frightened her the most. The person before her was no longer a stranger, but her husband, covered in blood and begging to be eaten by her. Bang! The hand was placed on Luo Weya's shoulder, and the shepherd almost instinctively covered his mouth, not wanting to think about what would happen next. But soon, the initial killing of the fear aura ended, and the shepherd woke up and looked at the stranger in front of him with his eyes gradually becoming cold. The soul of her husband, whom she was hurting, reminded her that there was nothing to fear, for she would have eaten him long ago. Shepherd, although you don't have any fatal parts on your body, if this sword that can corrode your spirit pierces your brain, you will still die. Shah-Ir placed the bone sword flat on Luvia's shoulder and said with a smile. Who are you? Even though the opponent didn't attack intentionally, Luvia could still feel that her emotions became calm under the influence of this sword. She looked at the guy in front of her with her gray eyes, sizing up this uninvited outsider. Will this help you discern my origins more clearly? Shah-Ir cut his finger so that she could clearly see the blood flowing out, and with a light flick, blood beads flew out. Luo Weya frowned slightly. She used her flesh and blood magic to control the drop of blood and briefly examined it. There was no familiar aura of curse in the blood. This person did not belong to the forsaken land of the gods. The voice you suppressed. Luo Weya spoke the true Creator's eating language. It's not that exaggerated. It's just to lower the volume temporarily. Shah-Ir said modestly. Sit down. He took back the holy sword, placed it flat on the table, and motioned for Luvia to sit down with him. You came to me, what is your purpose? Luo Weiya couldn't see through Sha'ir for the time being, so she could only sit down with him. My arrival here was somewhat unexpected. Survival in the God-forsaken land is indeed difficult. After infiltrating your Silver City, I'll need to find a place to rest temporarily. You're the most suitable. You have a certain status, but you're not a core figure. You're a bit of a loner, and you're also quite beautiful. As he spoke, he used the Eye of Wind to cast a simple spell, filling the 2 cups on the table with water. Can you purify it? Sha'ir gestured to Luvia. Luvia didn't like Sha'ir's attitude, but she still used the power of dawn to purify the water. She had questions that needed to be answered, and the other party seemed to have the same intention. As you can see, I am a person favored by God. According to the most basic historical records of the City of Silver that I learned through my dreams, you should have heard of my Lord's name, the Goddess of Night. Ordinary people in Silver City may not know this, but you are an elder of the Silver City 6-man council. You must have heard of my Lord. My Lord should have been believed in during the Third Era. Sha'ir picked up the cup and turned it slowly while speaking. It's impossible for the senior officials of Silver City to be completely unaware of the name, Goddess of Night. The glorious era of the Third Age has a history of nearly 1,000 years. Silver City was not a small force at that time. Luo Weiya had indeed heard of the title of Goddess of Night, and she now understood that this might be a relatively important, diplomatic incident for Silver City. Silver City had not seen normal outsiders for a long time, but she was puzzled by the following. Why don't you contact Chief Colin? Luo Weiya felt that as a person favored by the gods, she could directly visit Silver City. Chief Colin of Silver City would not deliberately embarrass a person favored by the gods. Silver City had been without the protection of the gods for too long. You're easier to handle. Besides, my arrival in Silver City was a coincidence. I still need to find a way to leave later, and I don't want to face too many reasonable temptations from Silver City. Sha'ir told the truth. He didn't want to snatch away Mr. Fool's chance to show his miracles, and the Goddess of Night certainly didn't want to snatch it away either. Could he also steal the food of Dark Knight's pet and run to Dark Knight himself to claim the reward? You are easier to control. Luvia frowned, as if to confirm this statement. She couldn't take action yet, which made her feel a little shocked. The look in her eyes when she looked at Sha'ir became colder. I won't stay long. I'm not ready to cause a stir in Silver City. In fact, Sha'ir already wanted to go back, but he was just pretending. Even if he insisted on explaining that it was a chance encounter, he couldn't just disappear for 3 days and then come back and say that he was lucky, right? Do you have a way to leave the God-forsaken land? The coldness in Luo Weiya's eyes immediately disappeared. Her nervousness could be seen from her slightly tense back. The answer to this question was too important for Silver City. My method is related to my master, so I can't guarantee it. Sha'ir spread his hands. It might be possible to lead one person, but it would be difficult to lead a group of people. Really? Luo Weiya whispered softly. Her eyes gradually deepened, her struggle and hesitation gradually dissolved, as if she was about to make some kind of decision. If you want to find a way out for Silver City by believing in the true Creator, I think it's feasible. The road to the outside world lies in the west. To leave requires the tacit consent of the true Creator. You made the right choice, Miss Shepherd. Sha'ir did not offer another path. He felt that Luo Weiya's choice was very good. It was the result of her careful consideration. She did not passively accept it, but actively chose it. She was very proactive and a great woman. Sha'ir looked at Luo Weiya with admiration, and he felt happy just by looking at her. Such a look made the shepherd lady couldn't help but turn her head away and avert her gaze. Her original determination turned into some self-doubt with this inexplicable affirmation. Really, why do you suddenly have to affirm her? Baffling. Chapter 177 Unique Installation System. This was a relatively perfect meeting. Sha'ir lived in Luo Weiya's house and had the opportunity to experience the customs and culture of Silver City. As for the real eating sounds, he wouldn't listen. Sukabuli, who really scolded him, and Shah-Ir lived his leisurely life. It was best for no one to pay attention to each other. After Luvia accepted the voice, Shah-Ir didn't feel any difference. After all, when she was in front of him, Luvia had always been suppressed by the Holy Sword of Night and had never gone crazy, so he couldn't see any specific changes. But in the eyes of others in Silver City, Luvia suddenly became normal. Little Sun, who noticed this scene, was so worried that he couldn't sleep well that night. The Lord asked me to ask you if you are willing to believe in him. When Shah-Ir was dazed holding the can of tomatoes given by the fool, Luvia knocked on the door very politely, then walked up to him. After he came to his senses, she asked in a businesslike manner. The goddess is the only one in my heart. Shah-Ir wanted to say that he would think about it, but thinking of the Holy Sword of Night beside him, he drew a crimson moon on his chest. Luo Weiya didn't seem surprised by this decision, nor did she understand why the true creator had such a complicated attitude towards the other party. This made her even more curious about Shah-Ir, but her personality did not allow her to ask about things that were not related to the City of Silver. Will you cooperate with me? Luo Weiya asked the second question. She was a little nervous. After all, this was also the Lord's arrangement. She had just begun to believe in the true creator, so it was impossible for her to fail all the tests. Okay. Shah-Ir nodded casually. He didn't care who was his friend or who was his enemy. Luo Weiya breathed a sigh of relief. She also felt the voice in her ears gradually fade away. She didn't know what to say for a moment. Sit down. Shah-Ir found that if he didn't say anything, Luo Weiya would just stand there, so he simply spoke. This is clearly the other person's home, so who is the guest? Luo Weiya hesitated when she heard that. She sat down hesitantly with her hands on her knees. She still looked a little uncomfortable, as if she didn't know what to do. Shah-Ir casually tossed a book he had picked up at her, then ignored it and continued flipping through the history textbook of Silver City. It was quite interesting to read about these past events again through the records of later generations. Having something to do, even if it is a book she has read many times, Luvia can still immerse herself in it. She actually wanted to discuss how to cooperate, but Shah-Ir didn't mention it and didn't seem to want to mention it. Luvia couldn't bring it up even if she wanted to. At least she felt that maybe she could wait a little longer. Then the room fell into silence, with only the sound of the flames dancing and the two people turning pages of books. In a secret place in the northern continent, a dark baby crawled out of Mr. A's belly. Because it was a Caesarean section, Mr. A was still alive, and even his beautiful face, whose fanatical expression was once a little gentle. The black and ugly little thing crawled 2 steps, then shook its body and stood up by itself. It was then picked up by a big hand and carefully held in the arms. He didn't cry, make a fuss, or swear, which made the red-haired girl feel a little nostalgic and dazed. Lord, the conflict between those 7 guys will explode sooner or later. There seemed to be some pride and anticipation in the voice. The Junzao cub remained silent. He glanced in the direction of the god-forsaken land, and a dark and sticky ocean seemed to be reflected in his eyes. 4th Age. The Kingdom of Dragons, the City of Miracles. The pseudo-angel King of Kings, Shah-Ir, went through a period of debugging. Successfully pass the activation code, and uniquely activate the hermit, dormant somewhere in the spiritual world. According to the characteristic of knowledge follows people, the hermit's uniqueness actively turns to this elf who has partial omniscience, authority. In this way, on the basis of omniscience, Shah-Ir grasped the hermit uniqueness of knowledge itself, which symbolizes the mysterious side. The core authority of the hermit is to activate knowledge and give it substantial power. In this way, Shah-Ir reluctantly took a step towards omnipotence, based on omniscience. Since it is possible to use the power of other weakened symbols by relying on the uniqueness of the hermit, then the symbol of time and space may also be possible. It only requires developing a suitable set of codes that can be installed and run in the gray fog space, and the time difference problem between the 4th Age and the 5th Age can be solved. The first thing is to maximize the development of the hermit's unique power, but also to seal it to minimize the negative effects. The Chaos Sea shouldn't be able to suddenly activate uniqueness. With uniqueness in my hands, there shouldn't be any problems. Shah-Ir looked at his arm that had been assimilated into data by the uniqueness. Brass eyes appeared around him, quickly re-editing and restoring the assimilated part, then disassembled the data stream transformed by the hermit's uniqueness and began to recompile it. This is not an easy job. However, the White Tower path is just the right professional match, and the strength of the Angel King can suppress the uniqueness of the hermit with low activation level. Shah-Ir concentrated on compiling, wanting to edit the hermit's uniqueness into his own traveler system. Change the skin of this twisted black ball of thread and switch it into a large light ball that looks more like a system. Based on the uniqueness of the hermit, a system that can flow and run is compiled. Match the hardware with the software. After Shah-Ir obtained the uniqueness of the hermit, the small account that infiltrated the Moss ascetic order was like a cheat, and quickly gained a foothold among the founding members. 3 years to become a true god is a bit exaggerated, and 3 years to become an angel is also a bit exaggerated, but the growth rate is still very fast, becoming a hermit path sequence too. The sage is almost a certainty. It is entirely possible to treat this trumpet as a divine vessel for the hermit's uniqueness, and cultivate it specifically. In this age when hermits no longer exist, this is equivalent to being the hermit's favored one. Incidentally, he is responsible for collecting the whereabouts of the other 3 sequence 1-inch knowledge emperor characteristics. Outside world, northern continent, natural scourge. Shah-Ir has already occupied a quarter of the northern continent with the support of the Church of Mother Earth. He also recruited some scattered vampires. When these vampires saw that the king was an elf, they bowed down to him and transformed themselves into nobles of the kingdom of Constantine, responsible for garrisoning in various places. This is also because the relationship between vampires and elves is more harmonious than that between giants. As a result, the interactions between some elves who joined the Church of Mother Earth and the vampires also led to a small number of vampires joining the Church of Mother Earth. Because these vampires found that the elves were still the same as before, they meant what they said, very straightforward, and there was no false propaganda. The elves said that the Church of the Earth Mother Goddess was lax in its management. The elven demigods, regardless of their origins, whether they were divinely blessed or favored, all obeyed the direct leadership of the elven scourge. The elven demigods scattered across the 2 systems directly led the other mid and low sequence elves. When the vampires came in and saw, they found that it was indeed the case. Chapter 178 The Hatred of the Solomon Family. The vampires in the Church of Mother Earth still listen to the elf brother. The elf brother is very straightforward and doesn't have to worry about much. For political reasons, the queens and dukes of the vampires allowed some vampires to join the Church of the Earth. Although it is only a small part, the Mother Earth is probably very satisfied with this beginning, as her vest is more natural in this way. Even if she continues to absorb vampires in the future, this is also based on historical tradition. After Shah-Ir ruled a quarter of the northern continent, he was almost at his limit. Although there is no obvious conflict between the Church of Mother Earth and other churches, it is acceptable for other churches to preach in the kingdom of Constantine. For example, the Church of the God of War and the Church of Night can both preach to a limited extent. The Church of the Eternal Sun and the Church of the God of Knowledge and Wisdom can also be discussed if they want to preach. The Church of the Lord of Storms did not target them too harshly. But it still encountered resistance from all sides. Even though Shur's attitude was moderate enough, these churches still preferred to support different duchies or counties, which would be directly ruled by the church. Even if it was just worldly interests and did not involve the divine level, these churches still tacitly blocked the expansion path of the kingdom of Constantine. The Feng, Ji, Bai and 3 churches are at odds with each other. The Church of the God of War, the Church of Night, and the Faith of the God of Death in the southern continent are at odds. Because many elves joined the Church of Mother Earth, both the Church of Mother Earth and the Church of Storms were in trouble. The duchies, counties, and feudal lords of various faiths and churches in the northern continent are wary of the expansion of the kingdom of Constantine. The witch family, the Twilight Hermits, the Moss Ascetic Order and other secret organizations are operating in secret. There is also a fallen god in the northern continent, and he has 2 loyal angel kings under him. The top students of Shah Ir's generation were also rising rapidly. The Solomon family began to contact the fallen god. These gods are hostile to each other, and the various churches are fighting against each other and dividing themselves into camps. The Solomon family, who inherited the path of the Black Emperor, is almost driven crazy by their divisions. Such a weak country can't attack, because of the eternal blazing sun of this Earl's faith. Is this the power of the Eternal Sun Church? A quick look at the map reveals that the northern continent is densely populated with forces from various churches. What about joining a church? Feng, Ji, Bai, 3 churches. If you join one of them and want to expand, you will be targeted by the other parties. The same principle applies to the Black and War churches. Solomon studied the map for half a day and found that the largest kingdom was the kingdom of Constantine, which believed in the Mother Earth. This was because the region was located in the west and the Church of the Mother Earth had no obvious hostile forces, so the kingdom of Constantine accepted limited missionary work from other churches. The Church of Mother Earth was the most suitable, but the Solomon family was a step late. The southern continent also has people who believe in the Eggers family, the god of death, as well as various small forces that secretly believe in the god of spirits, as well as extensions of various forces in the northern continent. It's just that the civilization is a little more backward. The northern continent is in chaos and there is still a possibility of independence. If I go to the southern continent, I have to choose between the god of death and the god of spirits, right? The Eggers family's influence is obviously not limited to the Church of Death, and they simply cannot compete with such a competitor. Young Solomon picked out a few barely neutral territories in the northern continent and took them over as a buffer zone. He was cautious and did not dare to make a big fuss after taking it. These buffer zones are still buffer zones, scattered in small pieces on the map, and each small piece is a little funny. Then no further progress could be made. His territory was surrounded by various church forces. He wanted to expand, and these small states were really weak, but as soon as the fighting started, the church would warn him. The rulers of these small states are all closely related to the various churches. Can this be fought? So what if the Solomon family can win? Did they dare to escalate the conflict? The gods walk on earth. Kingdom of Constantine. Shah Ir sat on the throne and watched with joy as the Solomon family encountered one setback after another. Herodes would update some of the progress of the situation every day. The ways in which the Solomon family was worthy of him included marriage, bribery, corruption, and instigation. Slow progress is better than no progress. If you go too far, the church will raid you with brutal methods and the angels will warn you. What's the point even if the Solomon family isn't afraid of ordinary angels? Can this angel really fight? Is there a god behind you? I hit a wall one after another, and got a bloody nose. The Solomon family made up their minds and chose to cooperate with the fallen god and the real creator. The Church of Earth occupies the west side, the Church of Storm occupies the east side, the Church of God of War occupies the north side, and the other churches each have their own territories and cannot attack any of them. The Solomon family is tormented to death. If they go out for a walk, they will see old men wearing various clergy robes. The Solomon family was filled with resentment. They still wanted to promote the Black Emperor. They couldn't even gather a complete territory, and they wanted to establish a nation in a place as small as Lundberg and promote the Black Emperor. Don't be ridiculous. During this period, almost all wild extraordinary people and secret organizations were tacitly suppressed by several churches. No one cares about your normal development, but you want to occupy a certain place and become bigger and stronger. Without a church background, one will be tacitly excluded by the forces of several churches. Even if you want to establish a small state in the northern continent, without the approval of the church, it is not possible. No one cares if you become the king of a mountain. If you want legitimacy, it is impossible without the approval of the church. The gods don't care about such trivial matters. The mortals in the church of the gods do care. Without the recognition of the true God's church, it would be unreasonable. These churches usually split, but at this time, they have a tacit understanding. They either honestly accept the jurisdiction of each diocese, or occupy the mountain and become the king, or join a church, contribute to the church, and accept the church's guidance. In this era, there is no other choice. An angel from the Solomon family, in order to ascend to sequence 1 and kill the prince, had no choice but to join a certain church and work diligently. He finally gained the recognition of the church and, through a series of means, made other states belonging to the church submit to him. He finally obtained a complete piece of land and established a loose kingdom. When he wanted to charge at the Black Emperor, he found that the vassal states in this so-called kingdom still did not listen to him. There were church parishes in various parts of the kingdom, and these people were fanatical believers in the eternal Son. Did this Solomon want to declare himself emperor? And wanted to establish and promote a set of strict, complex, and unconventional rules? Does this emperor also want the people of the kingdom to believe in him more devoutly? What do the proud sons in the Church of the Eternal Son think of this? The entire kingdom directly rejected the king's request. The angel of the eternal blazing sun church personally visited him. The meaning of his words was very simple: you can be king, but you cannot harm the interests of the eternal blazing sun church. The glory of the Lord always comes first. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.